Congress is hereby called to order. Senator Francis Tolentino will lead the chamber in prayer.
The silence of our hearts, let us offer this prayer in the unity of our spirits. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Most loving God, we raise our hearts in prayer and thanksgiving to you for your precious gifts of life and health, of grace and wisdom. The highest honor and glory we offer you today for your unfailing guidance and grace that has enabled us
Is hereby called
gathered
to order.
here to be channels through which your divine will for this country and its
Senator
people
Francis
will find
Tolentino
fulfillment.
will lead
In all
the chamber in
humility,
prayer.
we implore your mercy and compassion for our failures and frailties. We ask you to look not on our sins, but on the faith that binds us together, even amidst this dividing pandemic. Cleanse our hearts and spirits with your divine love and keep us clothed with the mantle of your protection. Our country and our people have long beset with fear, grief, and confusion over when this grueling pandemic will end. We pray, Heavenly Father, that your healing hand will touch and embrace the world and restore us to a life of peace and joy. As we have been brought together in this mission to uphold the highest good, the Filipino people, we ask you to stay in our midst, O Lord, and direct our thoughts and our work. Bless this assembly with your divine grace and lead us in this quest for a better life for our fellow men. May your Spirit inspire us to serve you, our country, and our people, as your Son, Jesus, selflessly served and loved humanity. Fill our hearts with hope and inspiration as we seek the ultimate good of the people that you have entrusted to our care and protection. Strengthen and nourish our faith as we work, serve, and lead. This we ask in the mighty name of Jesus, your Son. Amen.
Amen. Secretary, will please call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senator Angara.
Present.
Senator Binay.
Present.
Senator Cayetano.
Present.
Senator De Lima. Senator De La Rosa. Senator Drilon.
Present.
Senator Gatchalian.
Present.
Senator Go.
Present po, present.
Senator Gordon.
Present.
Senator Hontiveros.
Present.
Senator Lacson. Senator Lapid.
Present.
Senator Marcos. Senator Pacquiao. Oh,
Present.
Senator Pacquiao present. Senator Pangilinan.
Present.
Senator Pimentel III.
Present.
Senator Poe.
Present.
Senator Recto. Senator Revilla Jr.
Present.
Senator Tolentino. Senator Villanueva.
Present.
Senator Villar.
Present.
Senator Zubiri.
We try again.
Senate President Soto III is present.
Huh? Kaya nga.
With 5 senators physically present and 17 senators virtually present for a total of 22, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader.
Much, Mr. President. President, I move that we dispense with the reading journal of the 14th session, Monday, 2021, September 13, and consider the same as approved.
Any objection? Chair hears none. The journal is approved.
President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
Secretary will proceed with the reference of business.
Reference of business. Bills on first reading, Senate number 2396, an act regulating the use and other activities related to vintage automobiles and other historical, classic, or collector motor vehicles, and providing for the exemption from the standards and restrictions set by laws enacted and regulations adopted after the date of their manufacture, introduced by Senator Gatchalian.
Referred to the Committee on Public Services.
Senate number 2397, an act creating a district engineering office in the first legislative district of the province of Negros Occidental and appropriating funds therefore, introduced by Senator Zubiri.
To the Committees on Public Works and Finance. There is an additional reference to business. You may-
Additional reference of business committee reports. Committee report number 307, submitted by the Committee on Public Services on House number 9422, introduced by Representative Garbin et al., entitled An Act Granting Maynilad Water Services, Inc. a franchise to establish, operate, and maintain a water supply and distribution system and sewerage and sanitation services in the West Zone Service Area of Metro Manila and Province of Cavite, recommending its approval with amendment. Sponsor Senator Poe.
To the calendar for ordinary business.
Committee report number 308, submitted by the Committee on Public Services on House number 9423, introduced by Representative Barzaga et al., entitled An Act Granting Manila Water Company Incorporated a franchise to establish, operate, and maintain the waterworks and sewerage system in the East Zone Service Area of Metro Manila and Province of Rizal, recommending its approval with amendment. Sponsor Senator Poe.
To the calendar for ordinary business.
Thank you, Mr. President. Moving forward on our agenda, I move that we transfer from the calendar of ordinary business to special order Senate Bill number 2395. So,
Any objection? Hearing none, so transferred.
Mr. President, move that we consider Senate Bill number 2395. And ask the
Any
Secretary-
objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is in order. The Secretary will read the title of the measure.
Senate Bill number 2395, an act to eradicate mobile phone-aided terrorism and criminal activities, mandating for this purpose ownership registration of all SIM cards for cellular phones.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize the distinguished sponsor, the chairperson of the Committee on Public Services, no other than Senator Grace Poe, to sponsor the measure.
Senator Grace Poe is recognized.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, dear colleagues. It is my honor to rise in sponsorship of a measure that aims to address the proliferation of SIM card-aided fraud in the country, especially during the pandemic. We have all heard of crimes perpetrated through SIM cards. Criminals have taken advantage of our lax system to freely carry out despicable schemes and evade the long arm of the law. Batay mismo sa 2019 National ICT Household Survey ng Department of Information and Communication Technology, out of 32,915 respondents all over the country, 6,840 individuals have been victimized by text scams by unregistered mobile numbers. Kung susumahin, isa sa 5 tao ang nabiktima gamit ang di-rehistradong SIM cards sa Pilipinas. We need not look further if we want to cite a concrete example of a SIM card-aided fraud. One of our dear colleagues in the Senate, Senator Wing Gatchalian himself, has fallen prey to the wicked schemes of these criminals. Gamit lamang ang unregistered SIM card na isa katuparan ng mga kawatan ang kagustuhan nilang makapanlamang o makapanloko ng kapwa. Unregistered SIM cards can also be used to facilitate other and more heinous crimes such as terrorism, cyberbank heists, the proliferation of unsolicited, indecent, or obscene messages, and the dissemination of a massive disinformation campaign which could cause chaos and disorder among the public. Mr. President, dear colleagues, these crimes are flourishing under the current system, proves that the system is flawed and needs to be changed. We are not alone in wanting this kind of policy. Globally, the trend skews heavily in favor of SIM card registration. A total of 155 countries in the world have adopted laws that require the mandatory registration SIM cards, including nations with the highest regard for data privacy rights such as Japan, South Korea, Australia, and most European countries in the European Union. To address this in our legal system, this bill will be requiring all public telecommunications entities, or PTEs, to make the registration of all SIM cards a prerequisite to their sale. Dahil sa pulisiyang ito, hindi lamang mapapadali ang trabaho ng mga otoridad sa pagtukoy sa mga salarin sa mga krimen na ginagampanan ng di-rehistradong SIM card, magiging balakid din ito upang mapigilan ang paglipana nila. Each buyer must submit a duly electronically accomplished registration form and present a valid government-issued identification card or other similar forms of documents. Anyone who fails to comply with the requirements shall be refused the sale of a SIM card. No valid ID, no SIM card. Ang mga kasalukuyang SIM card na ginagamit, mapa-prepaid or postpaid man, ay kinakailangan ring mairehistro sa loob ng 30 araw mula sa next credit reload upang hindi ito otomatikong ma-deactivate ng telco. All registration shall be forwarded by the telco to a centralized database accessible by the NTC and DICT. Any information obtained in the process shall be treated as absolutely confidential in accordance with the provisions of the Data Privacy Act of 2012. The privacy of consumers shall continue to be given the highest regard. Ang mga impormasyong makakalap ay maaari lamang makuha ng mga otoridad sa utos ng isang korte. It will be given only upon finding of probable cause that a specific mobile number was or is being used in the commission of a crime, or that it was utilized as a means to commit a malicious, fraudulent, or unlawful act. Inilagay natin ang proteksyon nito upang maiwasan ang abuso sa paggamit ng impormasyong nakakalap. Further, the measure provides penalties not only for the failure to comply with the registration requirement and breach of confidentiality, but also for using fictitious identities to register SIM cards, spoofing, and the unauthorized sale of registered SIM cards. Finally, the bill makes clear that any doubt in the interpretation of any of its provisions and its implementing rules and regulations shall be construed in a manner that accords the highest respect for privacy and liberally interpreted in a manner mindful of the rights and interests of SIM card subscribers. This bill is not the end-all, be-all in our fight against any form of digital crime. It is only one of the measures that we need to put in place as Filipinos increasingly turn to digital banking and payment channels. This is why this representation has also filed another bill regulating bank accounts, e-wallets, and other financial accounts, or Senate Bill number 2380. As proposed by the Bankers Association of the Philippines, the rise in bank fraud may be better addressed by following the money trail. The bill that I filed seeks to penalize money rules or those who electronically receive, acquire, or transfer money or proceeds derived from a cybercrime. Our reliance on our mobile phones for various financial and personal transactions requires legislators to ensure that digital connectivity is safe for all users. Mr. President, fellow senators, it is thus my honor to endorse to this chamber for deliberation Senate Bill number 2395 under Committee Report 306. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Senator Po, for finally giving the light of day to this proposal that has been languishing not only in the Senate, but also in the House of Representatives. Yes, the Majority Leader,
Yes,
before...
Mr. President, I believe you also want to give a co-sponsorship speech, Mr. President?
Well, what I will do is that I know you will be delivering your co-sponsorship speech. So what I will do is that I will just submit to the records my sponsorship speech. Most of the contents are covered by the sponsorship speech of Senator Grace Poe. Let me just place on record that as early as 1998, in the 11th and 12th Congress, I filed a resolution asking that the NTC require all prepaid subscribers to register. The NTC came out with the directive, just for the record. The NTC came up with the directive asking all the telcos to register their prepaid SIM cards. They brought it to the Supreme Court and asked for
Injunction.
Injunction. And it was granted by the Supreme Court. Naging forever yun. It was only, again, in 2015, I filed a bill doing this, and that was only the time that it was the suspension was lifted by the Supreme Court. And, well, you know what is behind this, you know. So I submit my co-sponsorship for the measure. Thank you. Majority
very much.
Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I too would like to give a co-sponsorship speech, Mr. President, and I too are join you. I join you in your quest to have all our SIM cards registered, to keep our people safe from terrorism and, of course, from unscrupulous individuals who want to dupe a lot of our people. But to hasten the proceedings, Mr. President, just like you, I will just submit my I insert to the records our co-sponsorship speech, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Yes.
may I be
Senator
allowed to
Gatchalian.
also give my co-sponsorship speech?
Senator Gatchalian.
Yes.
May I
Yeah,
be allowed
Senator Gatchalian, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Well, Mr. President, honorable colleagues in the Senate, good afternoon. It was 8 years ago when I first introduced the bill on SIM card registration while I was still a member of the House of Representatives. It was widely supported as 6 months after it was first tackled at the committee level, it was approved on third reading. Unfortunately, it failed to be passed into law before the end of the 16th Congress. The boundless stream of supply of prepaid SIM cards has become a magnet for illicit activities. There have been countless cases of online fraudsters who use unregistered mobile numbers. I'm pretty sure that 1 or 2 members of this chamber have received text messages in the guise of a pass-a-load scam, which has been prevalent even prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. In pushing for the registration of SIM cards, we are trying to put an end to text scammers and curb crimes that are committed by text messages of bomb threats, ransom demands, through untraceable mobile numbers, and most serious of all, the use of prepaid SIM cards in mobile phones that become triggering devices for bomb explosions. Over a decade now, countless innocent lives have already been claimed by incidents of remotely detonated bombs. A bus traversing the highway in the main business district of Makati in the afternoon of January 25, 2011 exploded, killing 4 people and wounding 14. The head of the PNP National Capital Region said an improvised explosive device was placed underneath the passenger seat. 2 years later, on the night of July 26, 2013, a similar incident occurred in one of the busiest areas of Cagayan de Oro when somebody left a bomb on a chair at a restaurant filled with doctors and pharmaceutical salesmen who had just attended a national convention. 6 people were killed and more than 40 were wounded. While there were several other incidents that followed in recent years, investigations on these 2 bombing cases yielded the information that a mobile phone with a prepaid SIM card that could be bought over the counter were used to detonate the bombs. In the CDO incident, authorities found out that a mobile phone was used to detonate the explosive device. The perpetrators built an improvised bomb out of a mortar shell and used a cell phone with prepaid SIM card as the trigger. In hearing the bill in the Senate last January 27 of this year, the Philippine National Police Anti-Crime Group said that in 2020 alone, 6,110 cybercrime offenses were reported to their unit, including online scams, online libel, computer-related identity theft or phishing, violation of Anti-Pornography and Voyeurism Act, and grave threats. Of this, 274 cases were reported to be related to the use of SIM cards, prepaid SIM cards, in the commission of the crime. In a subsequent letter dated February 17, 2021, received by my office, the Philippine National Police Anti-Crime Group categorized some 3,037 cybercrime cases investigated from 2018 to 2020 have used a SIM card for the commission of the crime. Nakapanlulumong isipin na ginagamit rin na kasangkapan ang prepaid SIM cards ng mga sexual offenders na isinasakatuparan ang kanilang maitim na balak gamit ang mga money remittances applications. Both the Philippine National Police and the National Bureau of Investigation have expressed support for this measure, as these agencies noted that the limitations they are dealing with in going after cybercriminals who use various prepaid SIM cards in scams and other illegal activities. Law enforcement find it very difficult to hunt down these criminals because they are unable to trace the ownership of the numbers. During the launch of the PNP's online verification platform against cybercriminals called Enhanced Anti-Cybercrime Campaign, Education, Safety, and Security last July, PNP Chief General Guillermo Elizar said that in other countries that require cell phone numbers to be registered, scams are avoided because they can trace the owner of the mobile number. Unfortunately, this is not the case here in our country. As of January 2020, 155 or 79% out of the 201 countries and territories have already mandated the registration of SIM cards. The Philippines, which has the second highest mobile subscription in Southeast Asia, is categorized under SIM registration under consideration. Mr. President, one of the benefits of having a registered SIM card is that of being provided greater consumer access to e-government services and creating opportunities for mobile e-commerce. It also provides new channels to access traditional retail financial services such as remittances, payments, savings, credit, and insurance, among others. For this, Mr. President, I enjoin this esteemed body to immediately approve this very important measure. Thank you, Mr. President.
Majority Leader. Senator De La Rosa, but Ronald De La Rosa is recognized.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. With the consent of the good sponsor and principal author of the bill, I would like to request to be made co-author and co-sponsor of the bill. With the permission of the body, I rise before this August chamber to co-sponsor Senate Bill number 2395, otherwise known as the SIM Card Registration Act, which mandates the registration of SIM cards as a prerequisite to the sale thereof. Mr. President, it is of common knowledge that the COVID-19 pandemic has made us realize the importance of our electronic device and gadgets, which before were merely limited to sending text messages and making phone calls. Now it gives us the convenience of making online purchases, food deliveries, groceries, bank transactions, and even virtual meetings and hearings with just a click of a button. A true innovation which probably when we were younger, never thought would be invented. Nonetheless, despite the hardships brought about the pandemic, we have heard of several news involving scammers which uses the e-commerce platform to make undue advantage, especially with our hardworking food delivery riders. Just last year, at least 10 riders delivered food amounting to 20,000 to a subdivision residents in Las Piñas City who claimed to have not placed any order through a food delivery app. Sadly, when these instances happen, there is no way we could identify the perpetrator, and thus our delivery riders are left with no choice but to bear the burden of losing their hard-earned money. Bombings triggered by cell phones are likewise not new in our country. In January 27, 2019, security footage of a bombing shows one of the bombers holding a mobile phone that was used to trigger bomb blasts that targeted 2 churches in the south. On September 4, 2016, a blast in Davao City used a mobile phone to trigger an improvised explosive device detonation. And on January 26, 2011, 5 people were killed in Manila when a mortar triggered by a cell phone was detonated in a bus. With the swift innovation of technology comes the speed of scam innovation brought about by scammers and perpetrators of online frauds. Nakakalungkot man isipin, but there are still those who take advantage of the situation by creating fake accounts or using fake names and hiding behind the anonymity of the prepaid mobile number to carry out these crimes and prohibited acts. Unfortunately for us, Mr. President, once the prepaid SIM card is disposed, there is no way for us to identify the perpetrator. With the proposed measure and with the leadership of our hardworking sponsor, SIM card registration shall now be mandatory as a prerequisite for the sale thereof, including all existing SIM card subscribers with active services who shall likewise be required to register with the respective public telecommunications entity. Others may think that it is a simple act, but for me, Mr. President, it is a huge step to deter the commission of crimes in the country. As the famous saying goes, prevention is better than cure. Thank you and good afternoon again, Mr. President.
Majority Leader. Senator Manny Pacquiao is recognized.
He had asked Mr. President to co-sponsor the measure. I'm not sure if he's online. If he's, oh, there he is. Mr.
President,
Go ahead.
Mr. President, I also want to be a co-sponsor and co-author of the measure, Mr. President. And I'm going to just submit to insert my sponsor speech to the body, Mr. President.
All right. We place that on record.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr.
Mr.
President.
President, to allow our colleagues to study the measure further, move to suspend consideration of the same.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration is suspended.
Mr. President, I move the transfer from the calendar of ordinary business to special order, House Bill number 9422. I so move.
Any objection? Hearing none, so transferred.
I move that we consider House Bill number 9422.
Any objection? Hearing none.
Thank you.
Approved.
Before we read the title of the measure, may we ask the lady senator, the sponsor, if it's an omnibus sponsorship speech for the two franchises or one by one, Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. President, because of course their agreements on the franchise are similar. So yes, I respectfully ask that it be
Okay.
read as an omnibus sponsorship speech.
So with the permission of the body, Mr. President, I move to transfer from the calendar of ordinary business as well, House Bill number 9423.
Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
Move to consider as well House Bill number 9423 and ask the Secretary to read the title of both measures.
Hearing no objection, we consider 9422 and 9423. The Secretary will read the title of the measures.
House Bill number 9422, an act granting Maynilad Water Services, Inc. a franchise to establish, operate, and maintain a water supply and distribution system and sewerage and sanitation services in the West Zone service area of Metro Manila and province of Cavite. And House Bill number 9423, an act granting Manila Water Company, Inc. a franchise to establish, operate, and maintain the waterworks and sewerage system in the East Zone service area of Metro Manila and province of Rizal.
Majority Leader.
Recognize the sponsor, Mr. President, our distinguished colleague and chairman of the Committee on Public Services, no other than Senator Grace Poe.
Mr.
Yes,
President,
you go ahead. Senator Grace Poe is recognized.
again, good afternoon, Mr. President, and to our colleagues. It is my honor to present to the body two measures that will ensure access to safe water and sanitation during the pandemic and well beyond. Access to water and sanitation is a basic human right. The United Nations General Assembly recognizes that clean drinking water and sanitation are essential to the realization of all human rights. This right cannot be overemphasized under a global health crisis. According to the World Health Organization, access to safe water, sanitation, and hygienic conditions are essential in protecting one's health during the pandemic. With such a finite resource, and the ballooning population, water shortage has always threatened the health and the economy of the residents in the Greater Manila area. The National Capital Region and its adjacent provinces have been plagued year after year and drought after drought of water crisis characterized by constant supply interruption, lack of potable water, and high water rates. In the hopes of urgently addressing these pressing water supply and distributing issues, as chairperson of the Senate Committee on Public Services, it is my honor to present to the body House Bills number 9422 and 9423, which seek the grant of franchise to two water concessionaires, Maynilad Water Services Incorporated and Manila Water Company Incorporated. We are already familiar with these two companies at maaaring karamihan sa atin ay mga customers nila. These two water concessionaires came about when the government, through concession agreements in 1997, entrusted the delivery of water and sewerage services to these private companies. At present, Manila Water is servicing the west zone of Metro Manila and the province of Cavite, while at present, Maynilad is servicing the west zone of Metro Manila and the province of Cavite, while Manila Water is servicing the east zone of Metro Manila and the province of Rizal. Last March 31 and May 18, 2021, Manila Water and Maynilad respectively signed a revised concession agreement which removes the contentious provisions found in the 1997 contract. These include A, the non-interference clause which prevented government then from intervening in water rate determination. B, additional safeguards such as the 12% rate of return cap, availability of legal action, stricter asset management, immediate turnover of recovered assets to MWSS, COA audit of books and records, reduction of non-revenue water, and as if learning from the past experience, a provision which sets the arbitration venue in the Philippines with Filipino arbitrators. Further, there shall be a tariff freeze until December 2022. Sa ilalim ng bagong kasunduan, walang pagtaas sa presyo ng tubig sa NCR hanggang December 2022. Sa ilalim din ng revised concession agreement, ang mga concessionaires ay kinakailangan magkaroon ng alternatibong water supply tuwing may scheduled interruption. Kung ito naman ay biglaan, kailangan ay maibalik ang supply ng tubig 6 na oras matapos ang notice at dapat ay may updates sa mga consumers ukol sa progreso nito. Ang hindi pagtupad ng service obligations ay may karampatang multa at posibleng maging dahilan para i-terminate ang kontrata. Most importantly, the revised concession agreement designates these two water concessionaires as public utilities. Thus, they need a congressional franchise to operate and will be subject to oversight. Mr. President, this is the first time this committee, under my being chairperson, will be granting a franchise to a water concessionaire. So, for good measure, apart from the House bill transmitted to us, we made use only of the standard provisions in franchises that we have already deliberated and passed on the floor. This includes the standard provision on responsibility to the public, highlighting the concessionaire's responsibility to comply with all of its obligations and to incorporate public participation in its service. We also included the standard clause on ipso facto revocation of the franchise for failure to operate continuously for 2 years or as provided in the revised concession agreement. Likewise, we inserted the standard tax provision as it is in line with other franchises and to make it consistent with the revised concession agreement, which states that the grantee is liable to pay real property tax as well as other taxes. With regard to their performance for the past years, we sought the assistance of government agencies like the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Bureau of Internal Revenue to ensure that the applicants have complied with their duties and deliverables. Both agencies have cleared the two concessionaires. Nevertheless, in view of our legislative mandate and responsibility to issue franchises, we assure the body that the documentary submissions of the concessionaires were scrutinized and carefully studied. Mr. President, we recognize that the grant of franchise is just part of a bigger solution to the water problems in the country, and that there is still a need to tap and develop new water sources, improve water supply distribution and sewerage system, and further educate people on water conservation and climate change. Kapag naisabatas, isa itong malaking hakbang tungo sa ating pangarap para sa ating bansa at sa lahat ng Pilipino na magkaroon ng mura at sapat na supply ng malinis at maiinom na tubig sa lahat ng oras. We are for the continuity of water services, and we have continuously reiterated to our concessionaires our expectation for a better water provider in the new normal. With the grant of this franchise, naway tuluyan na dumaloy ang ginhawa at maramdaman ng bawat Pilipino ang care in every drop. I thank my colleagues for your preliminary support for these measures and for signing the committee reports expeditiously. I hope that we can deliberate these with the public need in mind. Salamat, Mr. President.
All right.
Very much, Mr. President.
I can't believe this is a renewal of 2 franchises, which was approved in 1996.
You were still around, Mr. President.
Kami ni Frank Rilon na. Kami ni Senator Rilon nag-approve nito.
2.5 decades ago.
Yeah. Wow. Anyway, go ahead, Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Yes, and I think this is timely because, they had gone through a lot and trying to get a new concession agreement from government. Talagang pinadaan sila ng butas ng karayom. Ika nga. So, sana matulungan po natin din sila dito sa Senado. So with that, Mr. President, I move that we, to allow our colleagues to study the measure further, move to suspend consideration of the same.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure suspended.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 1156. This is the
Any
foreign
objection?
elections.
Hearing none, consideration of 1156 is in order.
May we recognize the sponsor, Senator Amy Marcos, and to amend our distinguished minority floor leader, Senator Franklin M. Drilon.
Senator Imelda Marcos is recognized and to amend Senator Franklin Rilon of Iloilo.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We have a few amendments which we will submit. We start with page 13, Madam Sponsor. On page 13, line 21, insert the phrase upon order of the President, comma, the IIPCC, comma, in coordination with. This phrase should be at the start of the sentence after section 16. We submit, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. We accept the amendment, Mr.
13.
President.
Line 21. Is that correct? Page
That's
13,
correct.
line 21.
Yes,
Yeah, the Secretariat did not hear it completely.
I'm sorry.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So what does the sponsor say?
We accept the amendment, Mr. President.
Accepted. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On the same page, lines 21 and 22, delete the phrase in coordination. We submit, Mr. President.
What does the sponsor say?
We accept the amendment, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On line 25 on the same page, delete the phrase, the foreign investment shall be. We
Yeah,
submit,
before-
Mr. President. Line
Any-
25,
what does-
yeah.
What does the sponsor say?
We accept the amendment, Mr. President. It tightens the language.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On line 27, it's the same page, after enterprise, insert the following phrase. Quote, except independent pension funds, comma, sovereign wealth funds, comma, and multinational banks. End of suggested amendment.
What does the sponsor say?
Yes, we accept the explicit exception and the entire amendment, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On page 2, line 1, before the word in, insert located.
Located before competitiveness?
Yes.
Yes.
No, before
What
in.
does
In.
Before
What
in.
does the sponsor say?
Located in.
Before
Located
in.
in. Oh, wait. You're talking of page 2,
Yes,
Page
sir.
Line 1, sir.
Yes.
before the word competitiveness.
Before the word in, Mr. President.
Teka. Iba itong ginagamit, because what we have here on page 1, the last word is global. It continues to page 2. It says competitiveness. Therefore, it's global competitiveness, comma, employment creation. So there is no in. What
Located in.
cover are you looking? What copy are you looking at?
Can we have a 1-minute suspension just to
All right.
double check?
Yes.
Session suspended. Okay, check nga. Nagkamali
Yes.
kami ng page 14 pala.
Yes.
Di, talagang yun ang gusto nila.
Mr. President, we committed an error. Instead
Alright.
of page 2, it should be page 14,
Correct.
line 1.
Page 14, line 1. All right.
That's correct. So before the word in, insert located.
Located in. All
Yes.
right. What does the sponsor say?
We accept the amendment, Mr. President.
Accepted. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On the same page, replace location with areas.
What line? Line 1 also?
Yes, I think so.
Yes.
Replace
Yes.
locations with
Areas.
Areas.
Yes.
What does the sponsor say?
We accept the amendment, sir.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On line 3, the same page, I think.
Mhm.
Insert security between the words national and interest. So
National
it's
security
national
interest.
security interest.
All right. What does the sponsor say?
We accept the amendment.
Any
Mr.
objection?
President.
Hearing none, accepted.
On just a on line 4, the same page. Instead of National Security Council, we just say NSC.
NSC.
Yes.
What does the sponsor say?
We accept it's consistent with the mention of the NEDA in the same paragraph.
Correct. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
And finally, on the same page, delete lines 6 to 8. Delete the whole paragraph.
6 to 8.
Yes.
What does the sponsor say?
Yes, in consultation with Senator Ontiveros, we accept the amendment, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
If I may read the provision now as amended and approved by the body, with the permission of the sponsor. Section 16 as amended will now read as follows. Section 16, upon the order of the President, comma, the HPCC, comma, in coordination with the National Security Council, parentheses, NSC, parentheses, DTI, and other government departments or agencies with security concerns, comma, shall review foreign investments affecting national security if, colon, number 1, made by a foreign government controlled entity or state-owned enterprises, except independent pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, and multinational banks, semicolon. 2, located in a geographical areas critical to national security, semicolon, or number 3, critical to the national security interest as defined by the NSC and the NEDA board. Paragraph, any recommendation to suspend, prohibit, or otherwise limit a reviewed foreign investment shall be transmitted to the office of the President for appropriate action. That's how Section 16 will now read, Mr. President.
All right. All right. That is what we have on record. All right.
Yes. Oh, thank you very much, Mr. President.
Done.
I have
you.
no more amendments from my end.
Thank you. Majority Leader.
Much, Mr. President. We thank Senator Franklin M. Drilon for his amendments. Now, the next to amend, Mr. President, is our distinguished colleague, the Chairman of the Committee on Justice and the Blue Ribbon Committee, no other than Senator Richard Gordon, to propound amendments.
Senator Richard Gordon, gentleman from Zambales, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thought that the distinguished lady from Ilocos Norte has already accepted it and that she would incorporate it.
Oh,
So-
I'm happy to do that, but perhaps you'd like to read it out as well?
Thank you, thank you. I'll be able to do it now. Thank you very much, Mr. Senate President and Majority Floor Leader. On page 5, line 18, after the semicolon, delete the word and then on page 5, line 20, after the word colon, open parenthesis, TESDA, close parenthesis, colon, replace the period with a semicolon and insert the word and, quotes. on page 5, line 21, insert a new paragraph which states, are we okay to continue, distinguished sponsor?
Yes, Mr. President, the two previous amendments are accepted. We are on the same line 5, line 21 this time for a third amendment.
Yes. And insert a new paragraph which states, colon, parenthesis, number
Wait.
11, close parenthesis.
Can we approve first the First Amendment?
I'm sorry, Mr. Senate President. Thank you.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On page 5, line 21, insert a new paragraph which states, quotes, open parenthesis, the number 11, close quotes, and then continue. 3, the word 3, and then the numerical 3 inside close parenthesis. Representatives from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, chosen from a list of nominees prepared and submitted by nationally recognized leading industry or business chambers, who shall be of known competence, probity, integrity, and expertise in any of the fields of investment, advertising, banking, finance, management, and law with at least 10 years, 10 followed by a parenthesis, numerical 10, close parenthesis, years of outstanding management or leadership experience, provided that each area must have only one representative, period, close quotes. That's the amendment, Your Honor.
What does the sponsor say? The sponsor
Yes,
is
we
pro.
accept the attitude, Mr. President, because the private sector participation will be very valuable.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's all from this representation.
Majority
And
Leader.
I thank the distinguished lady for accepting the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. With that, there are no other amendments to be propounded and proposed to this bill. I move that we close the period of amendments. If the lady senator, our chairperson, has other amendments, if none, we can close. May we ask Senator Amy? Where we can close. Okay, I can see her nodding. I move to close the period of amendments, Mr. President.
There are no further amendments, Majority
All right.
Leader.
All right. I was about to say that the sponsor has frozen.
With that, Mr. President, I move to approve
right.
second reading. House
No,
bill.
amendments.
Yes,
close.
I move to close the period of amendments.
Any objection? Hearing none, period of amendments closed.
Mr. President, with that, I move to approve on second reading Senate Bill number 1156.
Any objection? Hearing none, Senate Bill 1156 is approved on second reading.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you to our sponsor and our distinguished colleagues. Next item on the agenda, Senate Bill number 2152. I move that we resume consideration of this measure, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration is in order.
Mr. President, may we recognize Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, the sponsor of this measure, for any amendments, both individual and committee.
So the parliamentary status, period of amendment, Senator Gatchalian is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, Mr. President, we have a couple of amendments, and so does Senator Joel, who will be reading his own amendments on the bill, Mr. President. So with that, we will start off with the amendment of Senator Joel, if he is online or on the floor.
No, he's not. Might as well start with your amendment.
Sige po, I'll start with my amendments, and this is an amendment from Senator Pia, which we accepted, and I would like to thank Senator Pia for her very good suggestions that made the bill holistic and encompassing and inclusive, of course. So on page 3, line 27, insert a new subparagraph E to define the term para-teachers as follows. Para-teachers refer to those who have taken the licensure examination for teachers but were unable to qualify and have been issued by the Board of Professional Teachers a special permit indicating their area of assignment where there is a shortage or absence of a professional teacher. Then re-letter the subsequent subparagraph accordingly. So moved, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On page 7, another amendment by Senator Pia. On page 7, line 7, after the word programs, insert the phrase such as blended learning and flexible learning. So moved, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On page 11, line 24, after the word programs, delete comma. So moved, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On page 12, line 9, after the word program, insert a comma and the phrase and any successive pre-qualifying examination thereafter in order to determine whether the level of knowledge, skill, and readiness prior to the taking the licensure examination for professional teachers being met. So moved, Mr. President.
Prior to taking the licensure, there is no word
Prior
being, right?
Yes, prior to taking the licensure examination for professional teachers are being met.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On page 12, line 30, after the word schools, insert the phrase and tertiary level students in programs other than education. So moved, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Still on the same page and line, after the word education, delete the period and replace it with a comma, then insert the phrase as well as to encourage teachers to pursue graduate and postgraduate degrees in education. So moved, Mr. President.
In education, no longer in teacher education.
Sorry. Let me just repeat. Sorry, Mr. President. I am ano lang. As well as to encourage teachers to pursue graduate and postgraduate degrees in teacher education.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On page 13, line 24, insert a new subparagraph L to read as follows. Recommend strategies to TEIs and HEIs for the implementation of programs under Republic Act number 10647, otherwise known as the Ladrise Education Act of 2014, to provide opportunities for educational and career advancement for pre-service and in-service teachers, including para-teachers and learning support aides. Learning support aides refer to persons who work together in collaboration with teachers and contribute to the provision of learning opportunities that promote achievement and progression of learners. So moved, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
That's also a Senator Pia Cayetano amendment and suggestion, and this is also another suggestion from Senator Cayetano. Still on page 13, line 30, insert a new subparagraph M to read as follows. Recommend to the DepEd and CHED strategies and policies related to attracting and recruiting outstanding high school graduates to pursue an education degree and to ensure a seamless transition from higher education to employment in teaching. Other qualified professionals from different fields may also be recruited into the teaching profession, subject to existing laws, rules, and regulations. Then re-letter the subsequent subparagraph accordingly. So moved, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On page 16, line 18 to 20, delete the phrase founded on a strong evidence and research base and assisted by new technologies and globally benchmarked innovations, and replace it with the phrase based on strong evidence and research. So moved, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On page 21, delete lines 24 to 25. So moved, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Mr. President, on the same page, delete lines 27 to 30, and in lieu thereof, insert a new section 20 to read as follows. Section 20, Section 10 of Republic Act number 7784 is hereby amended to read as follows. Section 10, Section 18, appropriations, add S, Section delete 10, insert 18, appropriations, insert S, and delete the entire phrase, the sum of 100 million pesos is hereby authorized to be appropriated from the income of duty-free shops or otherwise known as trust liability account of the Department of Tourism for the initial organizational and development activities of the centers and the council, provided, however, that not more than 5% shall be devoted to council's expenses. Thereafter, such amount as may be necessary to carry out the provisions of this act shall be included in the annual budget of the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports. Then insert the following phrase: the Secretary of Education shall immediately include in the DepEd's budget the amount necessary for the effective implementation of this act. Thereafter, the amount for its continuous implementation shall be included in the annual General Appropriations Act of the DepEd, CHED, TESDA, and PRC. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Mr. President, on page 22, delete lines 1 to 7 and in lieu thereof, insert a new section 21 to read as follows. Section 21. Section 11 of Republic Act number 7784 is hereby amended to read as follows. Section delete 11, insert 19, implementing rules and regulations, IRR, and delete the Teacher Education Council created under this act shall promulgate the implementing rules and regulations 60 days after the approval of this act, and insert the sentence, within 60 days from the effectivity of this act, the council created under Section 5 herein shall issue the necessary rules and regulation for its effective implementation. The IRR issued pursuant to this section shall take effect 30 days after its publication in the newspaper of general circulation. Copies of the IRR as published shall be transmitted to Congress through the chairpersons of the Senate Committee on Basic Education, Arts and Culture, and the House Representatives Committee on Basic Education and Culture, not later than 6 months after the effectivity of this act. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
And finally, Mr. President, renumber succeeding sections accordingly. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Mr. President, Senator Joel also has a few amendments. I'm not sure if he's online or on the floor.
He's not here.
Staff is here, we can ask the staff to read it. Okay.
So is that all?
That's
all
for
individual amendments are there,
As far as the-
except for the amendments of Senator Joel?
yeah. Those amendments are from my individual amendments and Senator Pia's amendments, Mr. President. But Senator Joel wants to read his own amendments.
But if he's not here, why don't you read it already so that we can get rid of this piece?
Yes, Mr. President. I can do that, Mr. President. I have the lines right now.
Before we do that, maybe you can recognize Senator Pia. Cayetanos.
All right, Senator Pia Cayetano is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Perhaps while we are trying to get in touch with Senator Joel Villanueva, I can just make my short manifestation. I'd like to thank the chairman of the Committee on Basic Education for accepting my amendments. As chairman of the Committee on Sustainable Development Goals, Innovation and Futures Thinking, I'd like to emphasize that these amendments are in line with SDG number 4 on quality education. And part of quality education is increasing not just the supply of teachers, but the quality of teachers. So most of my amendments are geared towards supporting the most of my amendments are geared towards providing a basis for our council and our policymakers to further support the career track and the improvement of the quality of education. I also try to approach it from a very practical standpoint, and that is making being a teacher an honorable profession, making it as honorable as it should be, and also making it enticing to attract the best of the best to become teachers. Because in Scandinavia, where they are always topping education results of their children, teachers, they are able to recruit the best of their graduates to become teachers. So they already start with the creme de la creme. And I'd like to also be able to do that in our country, Mr. President. So my amendments are aligned with His Honor's vision as well. And without going into further details, it's on record already as His Honor has accepted them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Pia. And indeed, the amendments that you proposed and suggested made the bill holistic, and we also introduced some new concepts such as the Live Rise program, the para teachers. These are important concepts that can help improve the teaching as well as the efficiency inside the classroom. So thank you very much for those. Mr. President, with the indulgence of the body, I've talked to Senator Joel, and I got his permission to read his amendments on the floor, Mr. President.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. On page 2, line 10, insert the words "and school" after the word "teaching." Still on page 2, line 24, add a comma after the word "responsible."
Let's do it one by one. The first amendment. Any
First-
objection?
Yeah.
Hearing none, adopted.
Okay. Still on
Right.
page 2, line 24, add a comma after the word "responsible." Then insert the words "competent" and "productive." So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On page 4, line 23, after the words "at the," insert the word "kindergarten" and then add comma. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
On page 13, line 15, delete the comma after the word "standards" and insert the following phrase: "and the Philippine Qualifications Framework." So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Still on page 13, line 23, after the word "questions," insert the phrase "and corresponding answers." So
Any
move, Mr.
objection?
President.
Hearing none, adopted.
Still on the same page, line 24, after the word "PRC," insert the words "as well as the results of item analysis and other relevant test statistics." So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
That's it, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
All right, Majority Leader.
Very, very good, Mr. President. With that, I move to close the period of amendments.
Any objection? Hearing none, period of amendments closed.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I really think this bill is timely. We're having problems in the education sector now. I think no time in recent history have we seen such difficulties our education sector is going through with this pandemic. And teachers' excellence and training is really what we also need to be able to improve and move forward from this situation that we're in right now, Mr. President. So with that, I move that we approve on second reading Senate Bill number 2152.
Any objection? Hearing none, 2152 is approved on second reading.
Mr. President, if I may be made also, did I already ask to be made a co-author, co-sponsor? May I be made a co-author of the measure with the permission of Senator Gatchalian?
All right,
Mr. President.
take note.
And thank you.
Mr.
And
President.
Senator Ramos Recto also would like to be made a
All right,
co-author. and
Senator
co-sponsor.
Recto.
Thank you very much. So move to suspend consideration.
Consideration of the measure suspended.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move to resume consideration of Senate Bill number 2077.
Any objection? Hearing none, 2077's consideration is in order.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We are in the period of amendments. And with the permission, we already, after lengthy discussions last night, Mr. President, I would like to thank the members of the TWG for the amendments. Dave Torres, my staff, together with the other staffs of Senators Cayetano, Senator Pacquiao, of course, Senator Joel, and Senator Wing Gatchalian. They worked double time for the proposed amendment. So if I may, Mr. President, with the permission of our distinguished Pambansang Kamao, my compadre, Senator Pacquiao, open the period of amendments, and if I can read the amendments, if you will accept them, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, period of amendments open. Senator Pacquiao, are you allowing the Majority Leader to read the amendments?
Yes, Mr. President, I'm ready for the amendments.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, on page 4, and I don't know if my colleagues have the committee report with you. On page 4, line 2, delete directly under the administrative supervision of the Office of the President and replace with attached to the Games and Amusements Board for Policy and Program Coordination. This is page 4, line 2.
What does the sponsor say?
Amendments accepted, Mr. President.
Accepted. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So the section 4 will now read as follows. Section 4, creation of the Philippine Boxing Combat Sports Commission to carry out the above declared policies. The Philippine Boxing Combat Sports Commission is hereby created. The commission shall be attached to the Games and Amusements Board for Policy and Programs Coordination. Period, Mr. President. Thank you. Still on page 4, the composition of the commission for brevity. May we propose that the text of section 6, starting with the phrase "the commission," up to the word "member" on line 25, be deleted and replaced with the following, Mr. President. Quote, the commission shall be composed of the following: the GAB or the GAB chairperson as the chairperson, and a nationally recognized advocate for the development and growth for professional boxing and combat sports in the country, comma, the Secretary of the Department of Health, DOH, or his or her representative, comma, and 2 representatives from the professional boxing and combat sports industries as members, period.
What does the sponsor say?
Amendments accepted, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Mr. President.
Senator Cayetano is recognized.
Yeah, could I hear the second member again? I'm not sure if I heard it correctly. After the GAB chairman?
Yes, after the GAB chairman, as the chairperson, comma, and a nationally recognized advocate for the development and growth of professional boxing and combat sports in the country, comma, that's the second member. The
Yeah.
Secretary of the Department.
That's what she's asking.
Oh, yes, yes, ma'am.
No, because Mr. President, I submitted a proposal on that. Can you check, Mr. President? I submitted the proposal. because
I can
pointed
amend
out-
my amendment, Mr. President, for her to.
What is your proposal, Senator Cayetano?
Because my proposal is just a general advocate for sports. Because if you have an advocate for boxing, that's already representative number 4 and 5. So pareho lang yun.
Correct.
So I
The
just-
nationally recognized advocate.
Or somebody else.
Uh,
A nationally recognized sports advocate. How does that sound?
Yes,
or
that was
nationally
actually
recognized advocate for sports development. That is the proposal, I believe, of Senator Pia. That
yes.
sounds all right.
A nationally recognized advocate for sports development.
Sige po, if you want, I can make the amendment to my amendment, Mr. President.
All right. We withdraw
permission.
the previous amendment that was adopted. Motion for reconsideration of the Majority Leader. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. So with the permission of Senator Pacquiao, it will read as follows. The commission shall be composed of the following: the GAB chairperson as the chairperson, and comma, and a nationally recognized advocate for sports development, comma, the Secretary of the Department of Health or his or her representative, comma, and 2 representatives of the professional boxing and combat sports industries, comma, as members.
All right, what does the sponsor say?
Well,
Before the adoption, Senator Dillon, the minority leader is recognized.
Yes, Mr. President, as worded as in the amendment accepted by the principal author, Senator Pacquiao, it is a nationally recognized advocate for the development and growth of professional boxing and combat sports in the country. I think this is a better wording because this is just for the boxing and combat sports. So if we just state make a general statement, I don't think that's consistent with the purpose of the commission. So I would have reservations if that is introduced because I would prefer that the original amendment accepted and by the principal author as sponsor and approved by the body should is worded nationally recognized advocate for the development and growth of professional boxing and combat sport should be maintained.
What does the majority leader say? You are,
Actually, my president, Mr. President, I tend to agree with the minority floor leader because if you put, let's say, a basketball player there
Yeah.
or somebody who is into track and field and all that, kawawa naman yung yung boxing commission. There will only be 2 representatives there that deal with boxing and combat sports. The other 3 don't really know, especially if the GAB chairman is I don't know, if he's another, I guess, sabongero or whatever, di ba? Or anong ginagawa ng GAB niya? Horse racing, o baka horse racing aficionado, hindi po matutukan talaga yung boxing and combat sports. So, yeah, I'd make an appeal to our distinguished colleague from Taguig if it's all right that we just go back to our first amendment. I will recognize Senator Cayetano.
Senator Cayetano is recognized.
If I may just explain, that's the whole reason why you have number 4, which is a representative from the boxing professionals, and then you have number 5, the representative from the combat sport professionals. That's the reason. So now the number 3 is now repetitive. That's my only point. I don't really care who it is. Obviously, I agree that I want somebody knowledgeable, but why would it be application of number 4 and number 5? Is there a difference now between number 4 and number 5 and that person? It's the same.
Yes.
So can we get an answer? That's the only reason why I proposed another party, because I don't see the point of repeating it.
Maybe, Mr. President, instead of having a nationally recognized advocate, why don't we just have the GAB chairperson, the DOH, and 3 representatives of the
Yun.
professional boxing and combat sports industry? Tapos.
Yeah.
Genius.
Thank you, sir. I have my moments. From the
I
minority
agree,
leader.
I agree, Mr. President.
Very rare moments of brilliance.
I take exception to that, but
Genius.
because I love the minority floor
Correct.
leader,
Oh.
it's okay, Mr.
All right,
President. So
that's okay with
if
the.
that's acceptable
because,
to Senator Pia.
Yeah, and
we can just do that. And the sponsor.
Okay, Senator Pia.
I'd rather we be straightforward that you want 3 representatives than have
Yeah.
Yes.
different.
Agree, Mr.
All right,
Person.
all right.
Agree.
So what does the sponsor say?
Accepted, Mr. President.
All right.
Thank you very
All
much.
right.
Mr.
Any
President.
objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Subject to style na lang, Mr. President, because,
Subject to style, of course.
yes. And
Gov.
then,
GOV chairperson, DOH, then, 3 representatives.
yes, sir.
Okay.
That would be more responsive to the commission.
Yeah.
The idea of the commission. Mr. President, on page 5, first paragraph, on line 1, delete the last S in the word representatives, thus making it singular. Ay, my apologies, Mr. President. I believe Senator Pias wants to be
Senator
recognized.
Cayetano is recognized.
Mr. President, di yata nababasa yung amendments ko. I proposed
Which
an
one?
amendment at the end of the list that there should be no conflict of interest.
Okay.
Did I miss hearing it? Because I'm sorry.
No, my apologies. I don't have it in my list here, Senator Dave.
It was brought.
May highlight the orange now. All right. We are not done with that anyway. So,
Okay. All right. Because it's a mix, Mr. President. I have two amendments. One from
so
Senator
after
Pia.
the word
Yes, after the word
as
members,
members.
provided that all members of the commission shall have no conflict of interest therein.
All right. Any objection? What does the sponsor say? Senator Pacquiao?
Accepted, Mr. President.
No objection, adopted.
I'm sorry, Senator Pia Cayetano, I'm very sorry. I have two papers here kasi left and right, so they just
Mr. President, I withdraw my previous statement that there are moments of brilliance on the part of the majority.
Mr. President, we are only human and we're being passed papers left and right.
It cannot be
Actually, I have no bearing on this measure whatsoever. I just want to help my compadre pass this measure. And of course, for the combat sports and boxing community. All right, moving
Okay,
forward.
let's proceed. Page 5.
Okay, moving forward, and I'm looking at two of the documents. They seem to be the same. Going back to that amendment on page 5, first paragraph on line 1, delete the last S in the word representatives, thus making it singular. Change secretaries to secretary. And after the acronym DOH, delete the comma and phrase DOT and DILG. I so move.
All right. Any objection? What does the sponsor say?
Accepted, Mr. President.
Adopted.
On lines 3 to 8, after the word in, delete the colon, put a period after the word management, and delete the comma and succeeding phrase and sentence that ends with the word department. I so move, Mr. President.
What does the sponsor say?
Amendment accepted, Mr. President.
Accepted. Adopted.
So the paragraph will now read as follows. The representative of the secretary of the DOH shall have a rank not lower than a bureau director and must have knowledge, comma, experience or involved in sports medicine and or health emergency management. That's how it would read.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Next.
Still on page 5, line 9, delete the word chairperson and replace it with nationally recognized advocate. Ano, wala na pala siya.
Oh.
Yeah,
No.
sorry.
So wala na tong page 5, line 9.
Wala na to, number 4.
No, it should now,
Ask
Mr.
for 1 minute
President.
suspension, Mr. President. No,
Okay na.
I just want to clear.
As it is now, then it stands like the chairperson and the representative of the professional boxing and combat sports industry shall be selected and appointed by the President of the Philippines from nominees submitted by the professional boxing and combat sports industry.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Yes, the minority leader.
Yes, the previous amendment would now have 3 advocates of professional boxing and
Yes.
combat sports industry. So may I propose that we delete on page 5, line 9, we delete the phrase the national recognized advocate and so that we now just say the sentence will now say the representatives of the professional boxing and sports industry shall be selected and appointed by the president from the nominees submitted by professional combat and sports industry.
That's
What does
absolutely correct. Mr.
All right. What does the sponsor say?
Accepted, Mr. President.
Accepted. Adopted.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just a few more left. Still on page 5 on section 7. On the title of section 7, the word office, add the phrase of the private sector representatives.
What does the sponsor say?
Amendments accepted, Mr. President.
Accepted. Adopted.
Thank you. And finally, the words chairperson and representatives, as repeatedly used in section 7, be replaced with the words andina, representatives na lang.
Representatives.
Yes, wala na yung nationally recognized, wala na po yan. Representatives na.
All right. What does the sponsor say?
Accepted, Mr. President.
Accepted. Adopted. All right.
Thank you very much.
We're done.
That's it.
Senator Marcos, do you have any amendment?
Yes, Mr. President. Yes. Okay. Yes, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Leader. With the kind indulgence of the sponsor, I would like to propose once again the following amendments. On page 6, line 8, after the word combatants, insert a comma and the phrase, including the promotion of the participation of women in professional boxing and combat sports. I so move, Mr. President.
What does the sponsor say?
Amendments is accepted, Mr. President.
Accepted. Hearing no objection, adopted.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sponsor. Mr. President, on page 10, between lines 9 and 10, to insert a new paragraph to read as follows. The SSS, PhilHealth, and HDMF, to the extent that their charters and relevant laws may permit, shall develop a discounted or subsidized contribution scheme for female professional boxers and combatants. I so move, Mr. President.
What does the sponsor say?
The amendment is accepted, Mr. President.
Accepted. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sponsor. Mr. President, still on page 10, line 20, after the word combatants, to insert a comma and the phrase priority to which shall be accorded to women professional boxers and combatants. I so move, Mr. President.
What does the sponsor say?
Accepted, Mr. President.
Accepted. Hearing no objection, adopted.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sponsor. Mr. President, to give you due recognition to the extraordinary performance of our female boxers, I think these amendments will be meaningful and have profound effect. Thank you.
All right. Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I move that we close the period of amendments. Mr. President.
Any objection?
Senator Pia would like to be recognized.
Senator Cayetano is recognized.
Thank you. Mr. President, now that we've been able to move the bill forward, no further amendment subject to His Honor's, the sponsor's response. May we just hear from His Honor, how do we just explain this bill to the other athletes? Because we are giving now health benefits and the like specifically to professional boxers only. This bill does not cover amateur boxers, neither does it cover all the athletes that we recently honored in the Olympics and other amateur athletes. So that was just one of the issues that we raised when we point this out. We have always expressed our love and admiration for His Honor, our national, our flag. He carried this throughout the decades. But we just like to know, and we want to point out that we leave behind the other athletes by moving this forward. So can we just get a response from His Honor on that? Because we would like to support, we would like to find a way to ensure that our other athletes are also covered. So this is very specific to boxing. And the reason I mention it, some may say that we'll tackle that another time. No, the time to talk about that is now, because we're specifically elevating boxing, professional boxing, and leaving behind the others. So I just like to get an answer for that, Mr. President. As I exhaustively discussed in the previous sessions, we also have other professional sports. So we just like to get an answer from His Honor. Paano sila?
President, may I recognize, Mr. President?
Yes, Senator Pacquiao, go ahead. Respond.
Mr. President, the reason why I give priority to this mission, Mr. President, the professional boxing in combat sport, it's because, Mr. President, this sport is very danger. I mean, napakadelikado po ng buhay ng bawat atleta, especially sa boxing. Marami pong namamatay, marami pong nababalda, marami pong talagang pagkatapos po ng career nila sa boxing in combat sport, kawawa sila, walang tumutulong sa kanila. So, itong measure na ito, ginawa ko dahil para naman sila, especially, hindi naman lahat nakapagbigay ng umabot sa tagumpay. Pero marami pa rin yung mga nag-champion na kawawa at kailangan tulungan. So, ginawa ko ito dahil, yun nga po, itong sports ito, magkakaiba kasi ito eh. Kasi ang intention mo to hurt each other. To pin down your opponent, pwede lang, i-knock out mo kagad yung kalaban mo. So, yan po ang reason dito sa mission na to, na binibigyan natin sila ng importansya dahil karangalan din po yung dala nila, pero ang problema doon ay napaka-delikado po itong sports na to. Yun lang po siguro kasi we already discussed that in the interpellation period. Na-explain ko naman lahat yan kung ano yung kakaiba itong sports na to, boxing and combat sports. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, I'll just reiterate, amateur boxers are not covered here. They are left behind in this particular measure. And I'd also like to emphasize that
We lost you, Senator Cayetano. You may
am I back?
go back. Yes, now it's okay.
Thank you. I was pointing out 18 on section 18, which states that the commission, in coordination with various stakeholders in the industry and with the assistance of other government agencies, shall establish and spearhead alternative livelihood. I'm also pointing out again, Mr. President, that marami hong kumikita sa boxers when it comes to professional boxing. So I hope with His Honor's leadership, ma-ensure din niya na yung mga promoters, yung mga managers na kumikita, sino ang mag-spearhead nitong mga livelihood program. Hindi yung kakalimutan lang nila yung mga has-beens, di ba? It's also their responsibility because tandaan natin, professional nga sila eh. Pinagkakakitaan sila ng mga organizations behind them, the promoters, the managers, etc. Unlike the amateurs na wala. They just get an allowance if they are in the Philippine team, and the minute they are cut, nothing. So I'm just pointing that out kasi I know with His Honor's leadership, siya na hong bahala mag-ensure na maalagaan sila. And even ho itong mga ibang health benefits, itong establishment of a trust fund, again, kumikita po ang mga manager and promoters na nasa likod nitong mga boxers. So sana po, hindi ko na to papahabain, pero sana po sila din ang mai-involve sa paghahanda niyan kasi sila ang nakikinabang eh. Sila ang nagpo-push sa mga professional boxers to go out on the limb, and if something happens to them and forever silang forever meaning permanently or temporarily sila ma-injure, these people who make money out of them should be the one to pay and make sure that they are made whole or take care of them in the future. I just feel very strongly about that, and I'd like to, maybe His Honor would like to give a quick response. Kasi wag naman sabihin gobyerno, ang kumikita dito, wala namang kinikitang gobyerno dyan, except for the taxes kung manalo. Pero meanwhile, yung mga promoters nila would be earning from that. So yun lang, you know the industry more than me. The little that I know, I'm just putting it on record so that the industry players here are forewarned that I expect them to take care of our Filipino athletes, our boxers. Thank you po.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's the purpose of this mission, Mr. President, to ensure their benefits after their career, Mr. President, that they're safe. The commission will help them, especially in giving them benefits like especially sustainable livelihood. Lahat yan, kasama dito yan, kaya ito na ginawa natin dahil para mabigyan sila ng halaga. Kasi experience ko po, Mr. President, na sa ngayon, ang daming mga boksingero, daming mga batan, nagre-retire na nangihingi ng tulong sa akin, kawawa, walang makain, walang trabaho, walang benefits na nakukuha. So, naawa ko sa kanila, kaya ko po naisip itong mission na ito. Thank you, Mr. President.
But Mr. President, what I'm asking His Honor is yung contribution ho ng mga industry behind them, the promoters and the managers and the companies that earn money from their fights. Yun nga po yung sinasabi ko, hindi natin ho pwedeng iasa sa gobyerno lang na nag-aalaga din dapat mag-alaga ng ibang amateurs. Yun yung gusto kong marinig sa inyo kasi the way this is currently worded, it's still the trust fund that will be set up here is on government. Wala man lang contribution ang private sector na kumita dito.
I will assure that, Mr. President, na supervise ko rin yung pag-manage at pag-alaga, pagbigay ng importansya sa ating mga atleta. At kaya ako nandito, habang dito pa ako sa mundo, nabubuhay, alagaan ko at supervise ko itong
Mr. President,
boxing combat sports. commission.
Thank you. I'm happy to hear that. And on that note, may I ask His Honor, before we close the period of amendment, but I will also ask the advice of the majority floor leader and the minority floor leader. Is it necessary that we include a provision that allows the commission or the trust fund to accept private donations from the private sector? Do we need to do that? I'm trying to think, by law, do we need to authorize that they can accept? Can Senator Drilon, do I need? I mean, I'm just making sure that we leave this bill open, the donations
Mr. President,
by
if I
the
may,
private sector.
I think the commission will implement a rules and create a law in their own, Mr. President, to implement, like pension, like a allowance for the boxers, or anything that they can think that helpful to the boxers, to the athletes.
Mr. President, I don't think His Honor understands my question. My question is, how do we are we sure that the bill as amended, as currently worded, would allow the donations from private sectors? So I'm not asking if the commission has the power to make rules to provide for the athletes. I'm asking if, as currently worded, the commission, or for this matter, the trust fund that will be made up of government funds, can accept donations. That's my question. It's a legal question. Because if not, then I will just make a simple amendment that the trust fund, the commission or the trust fund may accept donations from private sectors. That will just be my amendment, para claro.
Mr. President, I'm thinking about that, but I defer to minority leader.
Well, if the good senator from Taguig can restate what is the issue, ma'am.
Yes. My issue is simply, I expect the private sector, for that matter, they could be the promoters, the companies who benefit, or any private sector, to be able to donate if they want to this trust fund that is in Section 20. Section 20 refers to a trust fund that the commission will put up. So I have a legal question. Do we need to insert a provision, in which case I will just propose to allow the commission to accept funding for this trust fund, or is it automatic? No need for such a...
My humble view, Mr. President, is that there is nothing wrong with placing there that the trust fund may accept donations from the private sector. Whether or not it's necessary, it is there, and it won't harm the measure if we place it there, if that is the wish of the good senator.
So on that note, that's what I was thinking. I would just didn't want to prolong it anymore. So will the good sponsor accept that? And yet, as stated by Senator Drilon,
Yes,
I can just add at the end. Mr. President, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, you were cut off.
Yeah. No, I was just saying that with the advice of the minority floor leader, then I'll just proceed to make a proposal that the commission is authorized to accept donations from the private sector.
Yes.
As simple as that.
Yes.
Okay to the style? Would that be okay to the sponsor?
Majority Leader, we will have to,
I see the facial
will-
expression of the Senate President.
I will have to entertain a motion for
Reconsider.
reconsideration.
Yes, as long as we can
Of the-
move to reconsider, Mr. President, the closure of the period of amendments.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved. We are back into the period of amendments.
We recognize Senator Pia for
Senator Pia Cayetano is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Apologies, colleagues, and to the sponsor, no, but I think this is an amendment that, based on the discussions, are okay with everyone. The amendment will be very simple. I think I'm not sure if the version I have is the latest version, but I'm referring to section 20. Maybe the second to the last line. I think the last line is the commission shall set. Is that correct? The commission shall set. So before that line, we insert the commission is authorized to accept donations from the private sector for the professional boxers and combatants welfare development trust fund. As simple as that, subject to style. If
Subject
anyone
to style. What does the sponsor say?
President.
Accepted. Any objection? Hearing none, adopted.
Salamat. Thank you po.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Senator. I move to close the period of amendments, Mr. President.
Hearing no objection, period of amendments closed.
Therefore, Mr. President, I move to approve on second reading Senate Bill number 2077.
Any objection? Hearing none. Senate Bill 2077 is approved on second reading.
Congratulations are in order to all those who participated and helped. Thank you very much.
Thank
to the
you.
Sponsor.
Mr.
Do you
President,
recognize
may I just-
Senator Villanueva?
Mr. President.
Senator Villanueva.
Thank you, Mr. President. Majority Leader, just a short manifestation. I apologize. I was trying my best to catch up for the amendments of the Teacher Education Excellence Act. And I would just like to put on record my full support and gratitude and thanks to our dear chairperson of the Committee on Basic Education, Senator Gatchalian, for accommodating our amendments. I would also like to thank our colleagues for supporting this measure and approving this measure on second readings, Senate Bill number 2152, or the Teacher Education Excellence Act. This is a game changer, Mr. President, and the landmark piece of legislation. And so I just want to put that on record. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Did you move for suspension already?
I'm about to move to suspend. with
Okay.
consideration. Mr. President.
All right. Any objection? Consideration of the measure is suspended.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was just told by the Secretariat that the passage of the Foreign Investments Act earlier on second reading could proceed to third reading, as it is a priority measure of the President. May we move, Mr. President, for the third reading of this measure if we have the numbers?
Yes.
And
The
ask the
motion is to
Secretary to read the
reconsider.
certification.
The motion is to consider.
Yes.
All right.
Senate Bill number 1156.
1156. Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of 1156 is in order. Your motion is to approve on third reading.
That's correct, Mr. President. Ask the Secretary to read the title of the certification, proceed with third reading vote.
The Secretary will read the title of the certification and read the title of the measure and conduct a roll call vote so that the Executive Secretary is informed that we are still doing our job.
That is correct, Mr. President. I completely agree with you 1,000,000%.
April 12, 2021, Senator Vicente C. Soto III, Senate President, the Philippine Senate, Pasay City. Mr. Senate President, pursuant to the provisions of Article 6, Section 26, Paragraph 2 of the 1987 Constitution, I hereby certify to the necessity of the immediate enactment of the following bills. Number 2, Senate Bill number 1156, an act promoting foreign investments, amending thereby Republic Act number 7042, otherwise known as the Foreign Investments Act of 1991, as amended, and for other purposes, in order to address the immediate and continuing need for legislative reforms to provide a more conducive investment climate, increase job opportunities, foster more competition, and further spur the country's economic growth. Best regards, very truly yours, signed, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte. Senate Bill number 1156, an act promoting foreign investments, amending thereby Republic Act number 7042, otherwise known as the Foreign Investments Act of 1991, as amended, and for other purposes. Roll call vote. The Honorable Senators Angara, Senator Binay,
Yes.
Senator Cayetano,
Yes.
Senator De Lima, Senator De La Rosa, Senator Drilon,
Yes.
Senator Gatchalian,
Yes.
Senator Go,
Yes, yes.
Senator Gordon,
Yes.
Senator Ontiveros,
Aye.
Senator Lacson, Senator Lapid,
Yes.
Senator Marcos,
Yes.
Senator Pacquiao,
Yes. Yes.
Senator Pangilinan,
Yes.
Senator Pimentel III,
Yan na lang.
Senator Poe,
Sa taas.
Yes.
Senator Recto,
Yes.
Senator Revilla Jr.,
Yes.
Senator Tolentino, Senator Villanueva, Senator Villar,
Yes.
Senator Zubiri,
Yes.
Senate President Soto III.
Yes.
Wala.
Square.
21 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. Senate Bill 1156 is approved on third reading.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Congratulations to the sponsor. You
Congratulations, Senator Amy Marcos.
They may proceed now to the BICAM for them. Mr. President, moving to the next item for interpellation, we have one last interpellator for our, after that will be Senator Pia Cayetano. He's waiting online. Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 2239.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of 2239 is in order.
May we recognize the sponsor, Senator Ralph Recto, and to interpolate our distinguished colleague, Senator Christopher Lawrence Bongo.
Senator Ralph Recro, the President Pro Tem, is recognized to interpolate Senator Christopher Bongo.
Mr. President, will the good sponsor yield the floor for a few questions?
Willingly, Mr. President, to the chairman of the Committee on Health.
Thank you. First of all, as chairman of the Committee on Health, let me emphasize that as much as this is a measure involving commercial regulation, this is also a health measure. As policymakers, we must strike a balance between regulating consumer goods and protecting public health, especially with the objective of preventing addiction among our youth. Kapakanan po ng bawat Pilipino at ang kalusugan nila ang ating pangunahing konsiderasyon dito. We need regulations against products that may contain or emit potentially toxic substances or highly addictive substances which are harmful to our health. That is why last year the President issued Executive Order number 106, which prohibits the manufacture, distribution, marketing, and sale of unregistered and adulterated electronic cigarettes, heated tobacco products or HTP, and other novel tobacco products. Under EO 106, access to electronic cigarettes and HTP are restricted to persons over 21 years of age. The use of e-cigarettes and HTP has also been included in the nationwide smoking ban. This EO implements the provisions of Republic Act number 11467, which mandates the Food and Drug Administration or the FDA to regulate the manufacture, importation, sale, packaging, advertising, and distribution of heated tobacco and vapor products. We in Congress also deem it wise to include in the law the banning of the sale of such products to persons below 21 years old. With that said, may I ask the good sponsor, how is the FDA currently enforcing our regulations on e-cigarettes?
Mr. President, I am not aware if the FDA has come out with the guidelines regulating this type of products. From what I hear, there are many complaints from stakeholders, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Recto. I know this issue was discussed by previous interpellators, but may I know what is the most compelling reason of the sponsor for transferring the regulation of these products from the FDA to the DTI. Does FDA fail in enforcing regulations? Bakit po kailangang ilipat kagad sa DTI considering kakapasa lang po ng Republic Act 11467 last year? Hindi po ba dapat bigyan muna natin ng pagkakataon ng FDA na implementa muna ito ng maayos, Mr. President?
Mr. President, para sa akin, consistency lang. Ang tobacco nasa DTI interagency at palagay ko mas mabuti kung ang mga produktong katulad nito ay under the DTI, similar to how we regulate tobacco.
Since you said the Interagency Tobacco Committee on Tobacco headed by the DTI regulates the conventional tobacco products, is the interagency headed by the DTI effective in regulating tobacco products as of now?
It would appear so, Mr. President, no? But not only the DTI, the interagency, but including all the laws that we pass that regulate tobacco products, no? At kasama nga dyan yung interagency. Kasama na rin dyan yung pagtaas natin ng buwis. And because of this, sa nakikita ko, nung araw, the prevalence of smoking was roughly 30%, and today it's down to 24%.
The 2019 Global Youth Tobacco Survey found that 10% of students age 13 to 15 years old smoke cigarettes. Clearly, there is a long way to go to properly enforce tobacco regulations. We also have to consider this in the transfer of the regulation of these products to the DTI. Moving on, Mr. Sponsor, does the human body absorb the nicotine in these vapor products?
Yes, I think so, Mr. President. And again, no, just to reiterate what I've said from the very beginning, my advice is for people not to smoke as well.
Kung pinapasok po ng...
But if someone smokes, I think they're better off smoking ends or HTPs kaysa sa regular conventional tobacco products.
Kung pinapasok po ng nicotine sa katawan at may mga pag-aaral na maaaring may masamang epekto ito sa katawan, sa aking palagay po, dapat may role din po ang Food and Drugs Administration sa pag-regulate nito. The sponsor already mentioned in the previous interpellations that he is willing to consider an interagency instead, or to include the consultations with the FDA for the regulation. We thank the sponsor for his willingness to entertain such amendment at the proper time. Does the sponsor have information regarding regulation of these products in other countries, in the United States, for example, which agency regulates e-cigarettes?
Yes, in the US, it is the FDA. The FDA regulates tobacco products in the US and ends products, but is not the case in many other countries, Mr. President. No? In fact, there are some countries who ban it as well, no? And there are also countries who ban cigarettes. But I think it is better to be practical. Like I've said in many occasions here in the Senate, my appreciation is that this type of products are less harmful than cigarettes, Mr. President.
I hope you won't mind, Mr. President. Anong epekto nito sa iyo ngayon, Mr. President, compared noon?
I do bike, I do swim, I go to the gym, I can play basketball, I can play soccer, I can do many things, Mr. President.
Do you smoke po before, after converting to...
I used to smoke a lot, Mr. President, and now I shifted to this product, and I feel much, much better. But of course, the better thing to do is to quit altogether. And I think we will get to that pretty soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for your concern.
Thank you, Mr. Sponsor. Is the good sponsor aware that just last month, the US FDA denied marketing applications for about 55,000 flavored e-cigarette products for failing to provide evidence that they appropriately protect public health. Does DTI have the technical capability or capacity, competency to test liquids and substances that will be consumed?
I am informed that they do have the competence to do it, Mr. President.
In a way, are we promoting these products to adults as an alternative to conventional tobacco products?
But one could say that, Mr. President, but I don't think that they're marketing it as such. I'm just speaking from my own experience, no? I think, and based on what I read, so from my own experience and from the many literature that I've gone through, that these are less, they are not safer, they are not safe products, but they are less harmful than conventional cigarettes.
The World Health Organization has cited research findings that which show that electronic nicotine delivery systems or ENDS users are more likely to become cigarette smokers. Nicotine is highly addictive. A non-smoker who uses ENDS may become addicted to nicotine and eventually may switch and become addicted to conventional tobacco products.
I
Since we
think
do not have strict prohibition on flavors, those who can legally purchase these products can be enticed to try and use these products. In fact, even those who have no intention to smoke cigarettes at all can be enticed to use these products because of the appealing flavors and the belief that these products are less harmful than regular tobacco products. Maaring magustuhan nila ang flavors, and since the products generally contain nicotine, they can be addicted to it, which in turn may lead them to go to try conventional tobacco products. May I solicit the sponsor's take on this? Does the sponsor think that this situation is a huge possibility?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I think it is the other way around. I think to me, the real intention of this is for those who are smoking cigarettes to shift to this product. No, I think if you started with an HTP or ENDS, you will not want to smoke. Kasi mabaho yung sigarilyo. Ito halos walang amoy eh.
Walang ano to sa hininga mo, Mr. Sponsor?
There is nothing. Yes, correct. Unlike when you smoke cigarettes, you have to go to the dentist very often, but dito wala. We can show you videos. There are numerous videos, and like I said, no, even the WHO Regional Office for EU, there is conclusive evidence that completely substituting to electronic nicotine delivery systems from combustible cigarettes reduces users' exposure to numerous toxicants and carcinogens present in combustible cigarettes. And I can read it on and on, Mr. President. No? So the reality is that sa aking pagkaalam, okay, yung mag-uumpisa ng ENDS product or HTP, hindi magsisigarilyo. Pero yung nagsisigarilyo, and finally there is such a product, they shift to this type of products because they are less harmful. Yun ang sa akin pagkaalam, Mr. President. And there are many countries in the world adopt this strategy because it serves public health in that sense.
Thank you, good sponsor. A global systematic review recently found that those children and adolescents that use ENDS, even when experimental in nature, are more likely to use conventional cigarettes. Since some are treating these products as less harmful than conventional tobacco products, vapor products and HTPs are considered alternatives. But won't these products discourage smokers from fully quitting by continuing their use of nicotine products? Moreover,
I think it's the other way around.
Yeah.
It is the other way around. You have a better chance of quitting cigarettes when you shift to this product that eventually stop smoking. Than from this product you begin to smoke, as I mentioned earlier. No, but yes, you are correct. No, in so far as As flavors are concerned, at the appropriate time, we will be willing to accept certain amendments. Maybe dapat descriptive na lang, or we can find a way. But again, let me reiterate, no, Mr. President, na dito sa panukalang ito, pinagbabawal natin yung hindi adult. Dito pwede lang pag adult ka, pag 18 and above. No? So hindi natin sinasabi dito na payagan natin ang ating mga kabataan na manigarilyo ng ganitong produkto. In fact, 1/3 of all the sections in this committee report, we reiterate, pinagbabawal natin to ibenta sa mga below 18.
Kailan ho ba na-introduce itong mga produkto sa market? Meron na ho bang, are there studies on the long-term effects of these products?
There are studies insofar as it being less harmful. Now, long-term effects, I'm not too sure because I think I'm sure that there are ongoing. These products, I think, were introduced in the market for 10 years, thereabout. Roughly about 10, maybe a little longer. But like I said, the WHO, I mentioned earlier, the WHO sa EU, the WHO International Agency for Research on Cancer. The use of e-cigarettes is expected to have a lower risk of disease and death than tobacco smoking. E-cigarettes have the potential to reduce the enormous burden of disease caused by smoking if smokers switch to e-cigarettes. Public Health England. Vaping is a fraction of the risk of smoking, at least 95% less harmful, and of negligible risk to bystanders. The statement was made by said British agency in 2015, reiterated in 2018, 2020, and in 2021, stressing the point that the same agency is standing by its pronouncements about vapor products. The UK Royal College of Physicians. Large-scale substitution of e-cigarettes or other non-tobacco nicotine products for tobacco smoking has the potential to prevent almost all the harm from smoking in society. So I go by also this literature, and like I said, based on my experience, I think they are less harmful than cigarettes. But my position is, kung hindi kayo naninigarilyo, huwag kayong manigarilyo. Kung below 18 kayo, huwag kayong maninigarilyo. Huwag magbebenta sa bata dahil may parusa yan dito sa panukalang batas na to. Pero kung ikaw ay naninigarilyo, quit. And if you can't quit, subukan mo to, baka makatulong sa iyo to.
Sir Sponsor, bakit hindi ka pa nagki-quit hanggang ngayon?
Malapit na, Mr. President. Pag-inom din yan. Paminsan-minsan nakakainom tayo ng beer eh. Ngayon nagbabawas na rin tayo.
Thank you, Mr. President. The outbreak of electronic cigarette or vaping.
Interject with the permission of the two gentlemen.
Go ahead,
Yes.
Mr. President.
We recognize Senator Pia with the permission of the two gentlemen.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to mention that at the proper time when it's my turn to interpolate, I will also show the updated studies because it's not as simple as His Honor, the Senate President Pro Temp states, no? I spoke to the very same people who mentioned that it is 95% safer. They were not able to explain to me how they got that number 95. WHO's latest statements do not say that it is safer. So at the right time, I'll put it in the record. I'm only mentioning it now because people will study our journals, and I consider it my responsibility that I must these facts in the very journal that will be read. So they will at least be guided to also review the journals, which will contain my own interpolations later on, because a lot of the dangers here, like I said, are very specific. The way that England approached this, I think the interpolator from Davao was not present yesterday when I mentioned that the approach of England is very different because they do not have a young population that is being exposed to the evils of cigarette smoking because they've already addressed cigarette smoking in their country. Not like our country where we have not addressed cigarette smoking. And that is why it is primarily a health issue still. And we should be very careful on how we change the regulations that we have already adopted just barely a year ago. And for the record, there are even countries that ban the use of e-cigarettes and HTPs and the like. Australia bans it. And lately, the FDA of the United States has delayed the release of the registration of Jules in particular. So there are really issues here. Just wanted to put that on record. Thank you for the patience of the sponsor who always allows me to intervene. And salamat din sa senator from Davao. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Pia. Yes, please proceed, Senator Bongo and Senator Recto.
Mr. President, the outbreak of electronic cigarette or vaping product use associated lung injury or EVALI in the United States in 2019 highlights the potential dangers associated with these products. In the US, they have a system for immediately reporting the EVALI. This was particularly put in place in response to the EVALI outbreak in 2019. Do we have this kind of system in the Philippines, Mr. President?
I think the problems in the US were basically because of the mga fake products, hindi regulated. Okay, yun yung mga pangunahing nagiging problema pag may mga smuggling, no, of certain products na hindi dumaan sa proper regulation. That's where the problem lies, Mr. President. So, and we're trying to correct that here by ensuring that all these products be regulated properly by the interagency to be headed by the DTI.
Wala rin bang nakakapasok na mga peke dito na gano'n since may nababalitaan nga tayo mga fake cigarettes rin po, Mr. President, na nakakapasok rin po.
That is correct. That is correct. Yes, there are fake cigarettes. I'm not aware. I'm sure that there are. And that's why we want, well, today we don't have the regulatory environment to begin with. Hindi maliwanag sa mga batas natin. And that's why we have this comprehensive committee report regulating these particular products.
Also,
now, I don't believe we'll get it perfect. Dahil porous ang borders natin, but at least we should try to regulate these products. That's what we're saying here, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Section 6 provides for the minimum age of sale and purchase of vaporized nicotine products. We can monitor the sale and purchase, but is there a way to monitor the use of these products? Do we have any deterrent to discourage minors from accessing and trying these products illegally?
Well, unang-una, bawal nga to sa mga bata. It is also, we are penalizing those selling to minors. Merong proof of age verification. You cannot advertise to minors. You cannot promote this to minors. May designated vaping areas. Bawal to sell these products 100 meters from a school, so on and so forth, Mr. President. So, ganun kalawak yung regulation that we have included in this committee report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. These products are easily accessible in Shopee or in Lazada and other online platforms. In-person verification is possible, but there might be some limitations in enforcement. How can we ensure that online sales to non-users are properly monitored, Mr. President?
Well, may penalty dito, may kulong. Yung kahit sa online sales, retailers shall ensure direct delivery only to the buyer who must be 18 years old and above. Nandito sa Section 17 yan. So we tried to put in as many safeguards as we could in this bill. And if the gentleman from Davao, the esteemed chairman of the Committee on Health, may want to add additional safeguards, we would be happy to accept them at the appropriate time. Meron din tayong provision dito, online sellers or distributors registered with the Department of Trade and Industry or the Securities and Exchange Commission. So we want them to register also with the DTI and the SEC.
Thank you, Mr. President. Anyway, Mr. President, maganda na mayroon mas mahigpit na regulasyon ang ating otoridad na may kaugnayan sa lahat ng uri ng e-cigarettes. Si Pangulong Duterte po, kahit nung wala pang e-cigarette, inuna na po ni City Mayor Rodrigo Duterte ang kalusugan ng kanyang constituents. Kaya noon pa, mayroon ng mahigpit na anti-smoking ordinance ang Davao, even wala pa yung sa national. We should not allow the unregulated use of these products and how it is easily accessed by minors. I also echo the advice of health experts for the public to refrain from using vapes or e-cigarettes as to the knowledge on the products is still limited. Nararapat lang po na pag-aralan po natin ito ng mabuti. And one last question, Mr. Good Sponsor, what is the effect of e-cigarettes po to persons nearby, the person smoking or using e-cigarettes po? Halimbawa po sa atin, bakit kailangan bang nandoon sa enclosed areas? Ano bang epekto nito kumpara po doon sa epekto po ng regular tobacco products? Kailangan bang magkaroon ng separate na halimbawa, kayo po, Mr. President, kailangan nakahiwalay na hindi na namin maamoy ito.
Yes.
So, hindi naman siya ganun kabaho, pero yung epekto po ng usok sa katabi, Mr. President.
Yes. Well, una ito aerosol, hindi naman talaga usok, aerosol to. So, this is definitely less harmful than cigarettes. Yung usok o aerosol nito, no? And under the committee report, under the bill here, meron designated vaping area, separate also from a designated smoking area.
Thank you, sponsor, to my fellow Batanggenyo. Mr. President, that's all. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the very wise questions coming from the Senator from Davao and the esteemed chairman of the Committee on Health. Maraming salamat.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Bongo. Thank you, Senator Ralph.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Yes,
President.
Majority Leader.
Yes, I believe we have one more member who will interpolate, but I believe they're not ready today. So move to suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 2239. So moved.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion of the Majority Leader is carried.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 2376.
Is there any objection? Chair hears none. The motion is adopted.
The parliamentary status or in the period of interpellation may recognize our distinguished sponsor, Senator Panfilo Ping Lacson, to sponsor the measure and to interpellate Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa.
Yes, we recognize the distinguished gentleman from Cavite, the sponsor of the measure, Senate Bill number 2376, Senator Panfilo Ping Lacson, and to interpellate the distinguished gentleman from Davao, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa.
Thank you, Mr. President. Go ahead.
Yes, Senator de la Rosa, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, for this opportunity for a former chief PNP to interpellate another former chief PNP. Mr. President, for the record, as an author of the Senate Bill number 1864 of the Military and Uniformed Personnel Services Separation, Retirement, and Pension Act, I would like to manifest my strong support
on the proposed measure, as I join our hardworking sponsor in stressing the urgent need to address the ballooning pension of the military that might greatly affect the budget of the AFP in the future years to come. It is high time that we give a solution to the needed 9.6 trillion pesos budget for the next 20 years. But again, without prejudice or with the least effect on our military officers and personnel who have dedicated their lives to the country. Nonetheless, would the good gentleman from Cavite yield to a few clarificatory questions?
Definitely to what I may call my protege, because he's been following me around, Mr. President. I became Chief PNP, he also became Chief PNP. I became a senator, he also became a senator. I became chairman of the Public Order Committee, he also became a chairman of Public Service Committee or Public Order. And then I became vice chairman of Committee of Finance, he also became vice chairman of the Committee of, and now he's interpolating me.
You forgot
And maybe, Mr. President,
forgot to mention that he also followed your footsteps during your PAOK-TF days.
yes,
That's another thing, Mr. President.
that was where I learned the most difficult job of police operations during the time of Senator Lacson as our chief of PAOK-TF. But nevertheless, Mr. President,
Mr. President,
sponsor,
just
the
a short
minority-
manifestation.
Yes, the
Is
minority
is
leader.
it true, Mr. President, that Senator De La Rosa is also wishing that Senator Lacson becomes president of the country so that he can also follow?
yes,
I can assume that, Mr. President.
that's what I was supposed to say, Mr. President, that when, Senator Lacson may run for president, but maybe Senator De La Rosa will also follow, will run for president in the future.
Senator De La Rosa, Mr. President, will also run for president?
Maybe in the future, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you.
President of Parents Teachers Association, Mr. President.
Okay.
To continue, Mr. President,
Yes, go ahead.
can the good sponsor spread into the records the objectives of the proposed bill?
Yes, Mr. President, the following are the objectives, fix the tour of duty of the Chief of Staff and other officers holding key positions, adjust the mandatory retirement age of officers of the AFP, raise the age of commission of officers of the AFP from 26 to 28, ensure implementation of merit-based promotion and attrition system that will assure the armed forces of a continuous pool of qualified and effective leaders. And of course, modify the grade distribution of officers in the armed forces.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you for that answer. Mr. President, the good sponsor mentioned that one of the objectives of the bill is to adjust the mandatory retirement age of the officers of the AFP. May we know the rationale behind the provision of the bill mandating an earlier retirement age of military officers and personnel?
Not necessarily, you say reducing the age of retirement. We're actually proposing to increase the age of retirement because right now it's 56 years of age. Now we're proposing under the measure to increase it to 59 years of age for key positions, and in fact, for the Chief of Staff, pwedeng umabot pa beyond that, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, these questions were formulated before our informal discussion, before the interpellation, Mr. President. But I was clarified by your earlier explanations. But for the record, I just would like to state this question so that it will be spread into the records for future reference. Because at present, we are governed by Section 5 of Presidential Decree number 1638 as amended by Presidential Decree 1650. It fixed the mandatory retirement at 56 years old or upon accumulation of 30 years of satisfactory active service, whichever is later. Whereas Section 6A, Paragraph 1 and 2 of the proposed bill set the compulsory retirement at 59 years old or accumulation of 30 years of satisfactory active duty, whichever comes earlier. So, nakikita ko parang as I have discussed with you earlier, that whichever comes earlier. So when I entered the PMA at the age of, granting for example, I entered PMA at the age of 17. So I will graduate at the age of 21. So 21 plus 30 years of active military service, I will be 51 and eligible for retirement. So for the record, Mr. President, is this possible? Is this scenario possible?
Yes, Mr. President, simply because one of the purposes of this bill is to enhance professionalism and competence. If you do not make it to the grade of Brigadier General after 30 years in active duty, then probably you deserve to be attrited, Mr. President. And if you go up the ladder and attain the rank of Brigadier General and even higher, Major General, then you are entitled to stay in the service a little longer, as defined under this measure, Mr. President. And since it is improbable now to graduate from PMA at age 21 because of the K-12, we also increased the age of commissionship, to be commissioned in the active service as an officer from 26 to 28. So minimum age of 21, we still retain that because under the K-12, chances are there are some exemplary students who may get accelerated, and still be able to enter the PMA or be commissioned in the active service at age 21. So we're giving that much leeway to be commissioned in the active service, of course, officer corps, because another age requirement is mandated or required under this bill for non-commissioned officers.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, given that this retirement age is likewise a contributory factor on the ballooning pension system of the uniformed personnel, how will this proposed bill address the same? How will this affect our military pension fund?
Well, we are not yet there, Mr. President, but it will have some impact. For the information of the distinguished interpellator, as well as our other colleagues, until now, we're still waiting for the final actuarial study being conducted by the GSIS and the National Treasurer. They promised to submit to us the final actuarial study, but the last that we received from them is a tentative actuarial study, which we cannot include in a committee report because we have conducted several hearings in this regard, and up to now, they have not submitted that final actuarial study, which will greatly affect what will come out of the proposed measure or the bills pending in this body, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. One of the concerns of our enlisted personnel is on the retirement age under plea to maintain the same at 56. For the record, in the proposed bill, when will they be considered as compulsorily retired?
For non-commissioned officers,
Yes, sir.
Mr. President, it is found on section 14, Mr. President. Age requirement for enlistment. Enlisted personnel shall not be less than 18 years old, or shall not be less than 18 or more than 26 years old at the time of enlistment, provided that they may offer special enlistment, etc., etc. So, again, there's a schedule. Yeah. It's, it is found under Section 6B, the retirement. Actually, Section 6, compulsory retirement of military personnel. And under 6B, an enlisted personnel shall be compulsorily retired upon accumulation of at least 30 years of satisfactory active service or upon reaching the age of 56 years
56.
old, whichever comes later.
Comes later.
Comes later, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that answer. So what is the rationale as to the distinction between the compulsory retirement of officers from the enlisted personnel? Parang iba yung standard ng officers, iba yung sa enlisted personnel.
Yes, because we're trying to maintain the officer to enlisted personnel ratio. In fact, under the proposed measure, the star rank officers should only be 1%. 0.01% of the total strength of the armed forces of the Philippines. So we have a bloated officer rank, and that's the reason why, or star rank for that matter. And that's the reason why we, as proposed by the AFP leadership and the DND, they'd rather have a lower officer or flag officer to the total strength of the AFP ratio, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. In fact, I really admire the proponents of this measure because nakita ko doon yung magiging composition ng officer ng buong organization is talagang it is designed to make the whole organizational structure as a pyramid. Mr. President.
Yes,
Talagang pyramid na malaki yung base, paliit, when it goes up the ladder, paliit ng paliit, so naging pyramid talaga. And that is the ideal organizational structure of a military organization, Mr. President.
It's going to be a more pointed isosceles triangle, Mr. President. More pointed triangle instead of a smaller base. No, I mean bigger base, not pointed. Actually, it's the other way around. No, but a smaller number of flag officers.
Yes, sir. That's what I see from this. Thank you, sir. Mr. President, Section 8 of the proposed bill states that officers and enlisted personnel covered by this act shall be retired in the permanent grade last held and receive the benefits appertinent thereto. For the record, may we know why are we changing the current policy of using the next higher rank in computing the retirement benefits of our military personnel?
Yes.
How will this provision affect those who are in active service now? Dahil para sa atin, sir, this is an incentive. Parang additional incentive. Dahil nagre-retire ka,
One rank higher.
you will be receiving one rank higher.
As proposed by the AFP, as you mentioned earlier, sobrang laki na nung pension. And if we retire a one-star rank officer, say Brigadier General, he is entitled to a pension of a two-star general. And
Yes.
that also has an impact on the pension to be received by the said officer. So they found it wise and even practical to just, retain for purposes of retirement, wala na yung one rank higher. So when you retire, anyway, both of us will not be affected by this because we retired as 4 stars. But that's levity aside. No, that's I think one of the reasons why the AFP leadership had proposed not to apply anymore the one rank higher upon retirement for purposes of pay and retirement benefits.
The reason why I stated this, Mr. President, because I just want to make sure that our active military personnel will understand, because baka sabihin nila na porkit tayo ay retired na, we don't care for them, na binabago natin yung policy. But sana open-minded sila na tanggapin yung rationale behind this provision, Mr. President.
Yes, but we have to adapt to the needs of the times, Mr. President, because as we already know, No, medyo hirap yung budget natin to cope with the retirement benefits, not only of the retired AFP officers or military officers, but all the uniformed personnel as well. No? And during the simulated actuarial study that was presented to us, medyo malaki rin yung impact pagka nawala yung one rank higher in the entire MUP organization or the retired rank ng MUP. Kasama po yun sa mga considerations to really bring down the cost of paying MUP retirees yung kanilang retirement benefits.
Perhaps if the good sponsor would consider the theory that the one rank higher notion is not just in terms of the additional compensation, but the prestige attached to the one rank higher. If you retire as a sergeant and you become a lieutenant, even your children will be proud to call you lieutenant. Would the sponsor agree to some amendments later that perhaps a one rank higher proposition can be adopted without an additional emolument attached to the promotion?
When you made the opening statement, Mr. President, I could already read your mind that an amendment would be introduced, but not applicable to, use the one rank higher. Say you retired as a brigadier general, but you can use major general as your title, but not including
The pay, the salary
the
pay.
benefits, the
Yes.
retirement benefits. So as early as now, I can see that we can accept that kind of a proposition.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Your Honor.
I would like to associate myself also, Mr. Good Sponsor, the statement of the presiding officer about that. Para sabihin natin na, okay, you are promoted but no cash involved.
Opo, kasi
Parang ganun na, Mr. President.
minsan hanggang lapida nakalagay yan eh.
Yeah, that's pride. That's
And
pride.
there is a burial nakalagay sa lapida is you're a lieutenant or you're a captain. Please proceed, Senator De La Rosa.
Thank you, Mr. President. About the effectivity of this proposed bill, Mr. President, given that this bill shall take effect 15 days after its publication in the official gazette and in at least 2 newspapers of general circulation, how will the compulsory retirement apply to those who are currently in active service with the rank of colonel but have rendered more than 30 years of satisfactory active duty?
There's a transitory provision here, Mr. President, and I think there's those who will be affected are those who will retire upon the effectivity of this act. It won't apply to those that will retire before the effectivity of this act, Mr. President.
Okay, so after the effectivity of this act, lahat na covered na, Mr. President.
Yeah, after the effectivity, yung mga magre-retire, sila na yung mako-cover. Or yung attrition. Of course, it goes without saying that unless a law becomes effective, hindi naman mag-a-apply, walang retroactive effect if it is disadvantageous to those involved or to be affected by the new law.
Thank you, Mr. President. But because I just would like to inform the body that during our consultation with the AFP personnel, together with Senator Bongo, kaya namin dinrap yung aming version of the MUP bill na ang effectivity is doon lang mag-start sa yung marirecruit after the effectivity of this bill. So ang effect is napakatagal pa, Mr. President. Yung aming version lang na with the Senator Bongo na ang affected lang nito after the effectivity of this law ay yung mga papasok na bagong new entrants. So meaning yung mga colonel, mga general ay hindi apektado sa batas na aming pinopropose. But anyway,
well, if that happens, I think it will defeat the purpose of this, the very purpose of this measure, Mr. President. Ang tagal nun. Pagka mag-a-apply lang sa new entrants.
matagal talaga.
Like, mag-a-apply lang sa pumasok na second lieutenant, na commission ng second lieutenant upon the effectivity of this measure, or yung bagong pasok na private. So it will defeat the purpose of this measure.
Kaya the effect will be felt 30 years after pag ganun. But anyway, to continue, Mr. President, what are the limitations, if any, to ensure that the implementing rules and regulations to be formulated by the DND will be in accordance with the spirit of this proposed measure?
Well, this is the favorite topic of the presiding officer, Mr. President, that the implementing rules and regulations should not go beyond the provisions of a particular statute or law passed by Congress.
So, thank you for the answer, Mr. President. Section 18 of the proposed bill prohibits the appointment of a retired or resigned military officer as Secretary of National Defense within 1 year from the date of his retirement or resignation. May we know the wisdom behind the prohibition on appointment, Mr. President?
Maybe it's the familiarity, Mr. President, but mabait na tayo rito sa bill na ito because si Senator Gordon gusto niya 2 years ang prohibition before he gets appointed. And in the PNP, it applies, ano? You cannot be appointed Secretary of Interior in local government if you are within the 1 year period of your retirement as a Chief PNP. So I think we just follow the spirit of the PNP law or the DILG Act of 1991 as amended.
Kaya siguro, Mr. President, when I retired, hindi ako designate ni President Duterte ng Secretary of Interior and Local Government.
If you had informed me,
Bureau of Elections.
if you had informed me before you retired, I could have filed the bill.
So if that is
So, by now, what do you prefer, to be a Senator De La Rosa or Secretary De La Rosa?
the chair may intercede, what would be would the spirit of the proposed measure apply to other cabinet positions which are related to the previous military expertise or training of the retired official? For instance, if you are a retired admiral, can you be appointed as within 1 year, less than 1 year, can you be appointed as Secretary of the Department of Transportation, knowing fully well that the DOTR Secretary would be handling a similar uniform service agency like the Coast Guard? Or if you're a retired Philippine Air Force general, within less than a year, can you be appointed as the CAAP chief, which is also related to your previous position? Is that the spirit behind the proposal of the good sponsor?
That is correct, Mr. President. It is not applicable to other cabinet positions. It is only specific to the position of Secretary of National Defense.
And the
In the same
DILG?
no. The DILG is covered by the DILG law or the PNP law of 1991. No, na pag nag-retire kang Chief PNP, you cannot be or a police officer, you cannot be appointed as Secretary of the ILG.
And the reverse probably is true. General Anyo was appointed DILG Secretary.
Yeah, because he's not covered with the DILG law. Pero if I may read, wag na. Hindi ko na ba.
Go ahead.
Mr. President, as my last question, the good sponsor mentioned during his sponsorship speech that as early as 15th Congress, a similar bill fixing the terms of the chief of staff of the major and the major service commanders of the AFP has been passed and approved by both houses of Congress. Unfortunately, this was vetoed by then President Aquino. May we know again from the good sponsor the reasons of the late President Aquino when he vetoed the bill? Did we address those grounds in this 18th Congress version of the bill?
Yes, Mr. President, the late President Aquino vetoed that measure after being passed by both houses because of the power or the authority of the President to remove or terminate uh, the position being held by the Chief of Staff. Ayaw niyang mawala yung power ng President. In this case, we inserted a proviso saying that the President can terminate no longer for cause, because I think that should be left to the discretion of the appointing authority to remove anytime a sitting Chief of Staff. That is one of the remedies introduced in this measure, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President. I think there's another one issue. That's the policy issue of the why the former President President Aquino vetoed that bill. Another is a constitutionality issue wherein yung about the extension of term. Parang ayaw
That's
niya
correct.
na ma-extension of term. Have we cured this defect, Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. President, that is correct. You mentioned because we are setting the law, we are passing a law setting the age of retirement, no? And what we did here is we fixed the term of office of the Chief of Staff and other key positions, Mr. President. So,
Fixing is different from extending, Mr. President.
yeah,
Am I
different,
correct?
different, Mr. President. This extension may have some constitutional repercussions or questions, but when you fix the term of office, that does not fall under the constitutional prohibition of extending the term.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification, Mr. President. So I would like to thank our good sponsor for answering our questions today and for enriching the record of this August body. We acknowledge the efforts of our government in trying to compensate the valiant efforts of our military personnel in keeping our country safe. No amount of monetary consideration would equate to service and love for country. But through this legislation, we can somehow make our soldiers feel that we care for them and we are forever grateful. And to borrow the words of our good sponsor, this legislation will give them the much needed moral incentives. With the permission of the good sponsor, I would like to be made co-author and co-sponsor of this bill.
Definitely, Mr. President, distinguished interpolator.
And before I end, Mr. President, I would like to ask the good sponsor if will there be another hearing for the MUP bill aside from this?
Definitely. The moment we receive the final actuarial study, then we will call for another hearing, maybe a final hearing before we report it out on the floor. I mean, the committee report.
Thank you.
I think the House has their own version, and it is easier to reconcile our version with the House, provided that we have the complete report from the GSIS and the National Treasurer in this regard, because that is a must-pass measure before we adjourn or before this present Congress ends on June 30.
Yeah, because of, just for the record, Mr. President, gusto ko lang talagang emphasize yung result ng aming consultation with Senator Bongo sa mga rank and file of sa ranks of the AFP na ang pakiusap nila kung pwede daw talaga yung bagong new entrant lang daw ang affected. Huwag sana sila dahil sila mga nasa rank of staff sergeant na, iba master sergeant, pa-retire na, then biglang nagbago yung benefits na nakaplano na sa kanila. Pinaplano nila how are they going to spend their yung matatanggap nila ng mga benefits, then ngayon biglang nagbago because of this law. Makasisihin tayo nila. But anyway, I hope everyone is open-minded to accept whatever existing realities that we are facing right now. Just for the record, Mr. President, yun lang gusto ko ipaparating. Sa MUP bill, ang aming concern lang doon talaga is yung new entrant lang ang affected, hindi ito mga nasa active service na.
Yes, we will definitely make sure that we balance the morale and welfare of our men in uniform and the availability of the resources from the national government. So I have been witness to your and Senator Bongo's concern and care for the men in uniform, and that will be seriously considered. I mean, your proposal, Mr. President.
That's all, Mr. President. Maraming salamat for answering to my questions. Mr. President, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Lacson, Senator De Rosa. There being no other interpellators lined up for today, and without objection, consideration of Senate Bill 2239 is hereby suspended. Likewise, session is suspended for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move to suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 2376.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration suspended.
Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 2373.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of 2373 is in order.
Thank you, Mr. President. No member had listed to interpolate the measure. I just want to see if the Senate Minority Floor Leader is with us today. Because it's really a very simple, allow me to co-sponsor with the sponsor. It's a very simple two-page measure granting survivorship to prosecutors in the prosecution service. And I think that's a great idea, Mr. President. Just a quick manifestation. So many prosecutors all around the country are being killed for doing their job, Mr. President, to be honest. And it takes a little comfort, it gives them a bit of comfort to know that if they put their life in the line of duty, that their benefits at least will be transferred to their wives and surviving family, Mr. President. And so I support this measure wholeheartedly. And if I can be made co-author of this measure, Mr. President, and I believe also the Senate President is also asking, and Senator Joel, so Senator Joel, the Senate President, and myself, if we can be made co-authors together with Senator Lacson, he's also asking to be made co-author.
Willingly, Your Honor, everybody. I think the Minority Floor Leader only had one reservation. That is the reservation that it only applies in the same manner that it applies to the Ombudsman and other courts in terms of survivorship. So I assured him that it is not going to go into others because originally in the lower house they wanted to include the parents and we rejected it. So it will just apply really to the legitimate, illegitimate, or legally adopted child and those chiefly dependent on the said deceased member. If said dependent is not more than 21 years of age, unmarried, and not gainfully employed, or if such dependent, regardless of age, is incapable of self-support because of mental or physical defect. So we have not really included it, Mr. President, yung para sa fund. But of course, the Senate President, the Minority Floor Leader, that's what he told me.
Okay. So if there are no interpolations, Majority Leader.
1 minute suspension, Mr. President.
Okay.
I just confer with the Minority Floor Leader.
Session suspended.
President, after conferring as well with the Minority Floor Leader, he has no further questions and supports the measure. We move to close the period of interpellation, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, period of interpolation is closed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to open the period of amendments and ask the distinguished gentleman from Zambales if there are any amendments to the measure.
We have no amendments, Mr. President.
No amendments.
Therefore, move to close the period of amendments.
Any objection? Hearing none, period of amendments closed.
Mr. President, I move to approve on second reading Senate Bill number 2373. So moved, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, Senate Bill 2373 is approved on second reading.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Congratulations in order to the chair.
Congratulations to everyone. This should make the prosecutorial service very happy because they were left out. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Move to suspend consideration.
Consideration of the measure suspended.
Finally, Mr. President, our dear colleague, the gentleman from Pampanga and Quezon City, would like to avail of the privilege hour. May we recognize our colleague, Senator Francis Kiko Pangilinan.
The gentleman from Pampanga, the Senator Francis Pangilinan, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Senate President, Majority Leader, and a naturalized Caviteño, as manifested previously by Senator Ping Lacson. Maraming salamat, Mr. President. Good afternoon, good evening to our colleagues. I rise on a matter of personal and collective privilege. Noong Lunes, September 6, nagbukas na muli ang voter registration sa mga lugar sa ilalim ng Modified Enhanced Community Quarantine. Ito ay matapos ang halos isang buwan ng pagsara ng voter registration sa NCR at iba pang mga syudad na napasailalim sa ECQ. Ngunit sinalubong ang pagbubukas na ito ng napakahabang mga pila para lamang makapagrehistro. Meron tayong video na maaring ipakita, maikli lamang.
Ito ang eksena sa labas ng Quezon City Comelec office nung Lunes. Ito naman ang sitwasyon kahapon. Wala na ang mahabang pila sa magkabilang sidewalk ng gate. Kanina, dahil sa sama ng panahon, nilipat naman ang pila at waiting area sa Science High School na katabi lang ng COMELEC. Kanya-kanyang dala ng payong ang magpaparehistro na nanatili sa pila sa kabila ng buhos ng ulan. Gaya ni Charlene na bagong botante.
Hindi na rin po namin sinayang kasi ang tagal, ang haba na po ng pinila namin. Tinuloy-tuloy na lang namin kahit maulan.
Nagkakaproblema sa pagpapatupad ng physical distancing, lalo't limitado lang ang tent at covered area. Ang ilang nagpaparehistro, nagbabaon na at sa pila na kumakain.
Kasi yung napanood po namin kahapon, inabot po ng hapon eh. Naulan na po kami. Kaya sabing gano'n, kumain daw muna kasi mahaba po eh.
Sa kagustuhang mapaaga, ang first-time voter na si Candy, hindi na nakapag-almusal.
Mahirap. Kasi po umulan tapos ang tagal namin nakatayo. Tapos hindi pa po kami nag-aalmusal. Yun po, mahirap pala tsaka matagal.
Marami ang
Pumunta nga kami dito para mag-ano ang anak ko, magrehistro. Kaso lang, ang haba ng pila. Doon pa kami tinuro ng gwardiya sa unang kanto daw, na doon daw yung yung pila ng bigayang ng number bago makapasok dyan. Kaso lang, umabot ng mga 3 oras bago kami nakapasok. Ay, cut off na daw, paano yan? Mag-uwian na lang tayo. Gaganon sila.
Bale po ang nangyari po is sobrang haba po ng pila kahit na sobrang aga ka po dumating.
Wala namang yung iba hindi namang distancing, wala. Para okay lang sa kanila. Ang importante makarehistro talaga sila.
Marami ang nagpadala sa amin ng mga litrato at nakita natin na kahit pa sinasabing extended na ang voter registration hours ng COMELEC, ay talaga namang mahaba pa rin ang pila sa labas ng ilang mga COMELEC offices. Ayon sa aming youth volunteer na si Ed, pumunta siya sa COMELEC Quezon City noong Martes. Sabi ng COMELEC, ang registration hours ay 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Mondays to Fridays at 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. kapag Sabado o kaya holiday. Nakarating siya ay alas 3 ng hapon, pero cut-off na pala ng 2:30 p.m. Ang ilan daw sa mga nakapila sa Quezon City, 6 a.m. pa lang ay pumila na. 7 a.m. mahaba na ang pila, pero 300 lang daw ang ina-accommodate kada araw. Swerte pa nga kung 300 ang cut-off. Meron daw mga presinto na 200 lang ang cut-off sa isang araw. Meron pang mga presinto na 50 per day lang ang tinatanggap. Nang i-tweet ko ang lagay ng pila para sa mga makapagrehistro sa Quezon City, narito ang ilang reply. Ayon kay #HopeForTheBetter, isa na ako sa mga di pa rehistrado. Actually, 3 kami sa bahay. Lahat ng dokumento namin handa na 2 months ago pa. Kaso mahaba lagi ang pila at takot kami sa COVID. Nagkaroon din naman dito sa Eastwood ng satellite registration pero nawala na rin. Sana ay balik ang satellite registration. Sabi naman ni #Maria Juno 0621, Senator, I waited po talaga ma-vaccinate bago ako makapag-register here in Makati. Ubos na daw po yung slot. Para kay #It'sMeNika, dapat talaga ma-extend. Isipin mo po, halos 80 people lang ata kami, pero 2 p.m. na cut-off na agad kahit hanggang 5 p.m. dapat. Kailangan pa namin bumalik kinabukasan. Tapos up to 60 na lang daw makikater. The rest na pumila, uwi. Buti sana kung laging may time pumunta at may pamasahe. Sabi pa nung isang comment, merong mga personnel, mga security na ang sinasabi, umuwi na lang daw, wala namang mangyayari sa pagrehistro. Mula mismo sa mga nakapila, ang daming balakid sa pagpaparehistro. Takot sa COVID. Ubus na ang slot. Hirap makakuha ng oras at walang pamasahe. At may pag-discourage pa. Ilan lamang yan sa marami at napaka-valid na constraints ng ating mga kababayan para magparehistro. Ayon sa PSA, ang estimated voting population sa darating na halalan ay 73.3 million. Sabi naman ng COMELEC, as of August 24, mayroon ng 61 million na rehistrado. Ibig sabihin, mayroon pang 12 million Filipinos not yet registered to vote in the next 17 days. Ayon naman sa nakalap ng ating opisina, pinakakonte ang registration sa NCR at Calbar Zone. Expectedly, mga region na pinaka-tinamaan ng COVID at mga lockdown. While the national average of registered voters vis-a-vis the PSA projection is 86.6%, 69.2% lang sa NCR, 76.5% sa Calbar Zone. Mababa rin sa Central Luzon o Region 3 na 79%. Kaya ang panawagan natin, we must not disenfranchise our voters. Dapat bigyan ng pagkakataon ng lahat na makapagrehistro ng ligtas. Dapat magkaroon ng konsiderasyon sa dami ng pinagdadaan ng lockdown dahil sa COVID. Dapat i-extend ang voter registration. Simula nang buksan ang voter registration noong January 20, 2020, 4 of 10 registration days sa Maynila was lost due to lockdown. Sa NCR, 4 sa 10 araw, sarado ang COMELEC sa mga gustong magparehistro. To recall, March 10, 2020 nang sinuspindi ang voter registration dahil sa ECQ, na natiling suspendido hanggang August 31, 2020. Mahigit 5 kalahating buwan, halos 1 kalahating taon, hindi makapagrehistro. Last August 2020, the poll body promulgated COMELEC Resolution 10674, which set the protocols for new voter registration under the new normal. COMELEC thus suspended registration in all areas under ECQ and MECQ for the duration of these quarantine qualifications. Nang nakaranas ng surge ng COVID case nitong March, voter registration suspendido sa Bulacan, Rizal, Laguna, Cavite at NCR. Nag-resume ang voter registration noong May 17, 2021 nang bumalik sa GCQ status. Nawala na naman ng halos 2 buwan para sana makapagrehistro. Nationwide, dahil sa suspension ng 5.5 months, tinatayang about almost 30% ng mga araw na sana'y makapagrehistro ay nawala. Hindi pa ito kasama ang mga lugar na kinailangan magsuspindi dahil walang pasok o kaya naman tinamaan ng back-to-back ng mga bagyo noong nakaraang taon. Hiling sana natin 1 buwan pa na extension para sa mga buwan na nawala dahil sa lockdown. Mahalaga sa COMELEC na mabigyan ng oras at panahon para maihanda ang voters list bilang prerequisite for the preparation and completion of its project precincts or POP. We believe that a 1-month extension will not delay COMELEC's preparation. At sa katunayan, mula 2013 at 2016 at 2019, October 31 ang naging deadline ng registration, hindi September 30. Bakit nung walang suspension ng halos kalahating taon dahil sa COVID, mas mahaba ang registration period? Bakit mas maikli sa panahon ng COVID? Dapat at the minimum, parehas lang sana, October 31. Para naman sa national at local elections ng sabi nga natin, 2013 at 2016, October 31 ang deadline. Sa ating mga kasamahan sa Senado, the Supreme Court itself recognizes the COMELEC's power to set the deadline of voter registration, so long as no registration may be done during the period starting 120 days before a regular election. Based on this alone, COMELEC has the prerogative to set the deadline of voter registration before January 9, 2022. Pero hindi natin hinihiling yun. 1 buwan lang ang hinihingi natin dahil kinikilala natin may mga pagsubok din ang COMELEC. Nariyan pa rin ang COVID. Nariyan pa rin, siyempre, ang paghahanda para sa 2022 elections. Another youth volunteer shared with us her experience. She said she only turned 17 this year and decided to register so she can vote next year. Hinanda na niya ang kanyang mga requirements. Ilang linggo ba bago pa pumunta ng City Hall. Pero nung dumating siya sa kanilang COMELEC, wala raw social distancing ang naganap doon. Hindi rin nasunod ang mga safety protocol. And sabi niya, there were a lot of people and I felt really unsafe. What if someone in the City Hall was positive? I have asthma, and if I catch the virus rather, it will be difficult for me to recover. Pagkasamit niya raw ng kanyang documents, pinaupo siya sa tent na puno ng tao. Dikit-dikit daw ang mga upuan, kaya hindi pwede ang physical distancing. Nung sinubukan niyang umupo sa medyo malayo at iwas sa siksikan, hindi siya pinayagan. Dapat daw doon lang sa tent ang mga magre-register. 4 na oras daw siyang naghintay sa pila bago matapos makapagrehistro. Sabi sa kanya ng mga kaibigan niya, swerte raw na yon dahil isang buong araw daw pumila ang iba. For her, she hopes that voter registration will be extended so that registration areas will not be too crowded, so that there is more chance for healthy safety protocols to be followed because the virus is real and deadly and doesn't choose its own victim according to age. Ang sinasabi lang po niya, makikita sa mahaba, matatagal at masisikip na pila na gustong-gusto ng tao ang makapagrehistro para makaboto sa 2022. Hudyat din ang mga pilang ito na kailangan magkaroon ng extension ng registration para ang mga nagpaparehistro hindi pa lalong ma-expose o tumaas ang panganib na magkasakit. The September 30 deadline was set before the pandemic. It is a pre-pandemic deadline. Hindi nakonsidera yung mga malalahabang mga suspension ng registration period. Kaya dapat nagbago na ang sitwasyon. Kinakailangan naman mag-mutate din, ika nga, yung mga plano ng COMELEC, pati na yung planong tapusin ang registration ng September 30. Walang sino man noon ang nakakahula sa bawat paglabas ngayon ng bahay ay isang malaking banta sa kaligtasan. Dapat mag-adjust ang COMELEC para sa realidad na marami pa ang gusto magparehistro. We recognize and commend the many adjustments COMELEC has made. Nagpartner ang COMELEC sa mga malls tulad ng SM, Robinsons, Ayala at ginawang satellite registration centers ang mga mall na ito. Pinayagan ng COMELEC ang voter registration sa mga lugar na nakapaloob sa MECQ. Binanggit na natin na in-extend ang voting hours. Ni-reactivate ng COMELEC ang records ng mga hindi nakaboto nung 2 huling eleksyon. But precisely given these pandemic restrictions and many adjustments that have to be made, naniniwala tayo na reasonable naman at marapat lang na extend ang voter registration ng 1 buwan o hanggang October 31, 2021. Kaya nag-file tayo ng Proposed Senate Resolution 851 na pinirmahan ni Senators Recto, Drilon, Binay, De Lima, Ontiveros, and Villanueva. Hinihikayat natin ng Commission on Elections na seryosong ikonsidera ang pag-extend ng deadline ng voter registration para mabawasan at hindi mangyari ang voter disenfranchisement. Maasa rin kami na maririnig ng COMELEC ang hiling ng Senado kung sakaling ang resolution na ito ay maipasa. Extend the pre-pandemic voter registration deadline from September 30 to October 31, 2021. Mr. President, the resolution 851 is now with the Senate Committee on Electoral Reforms. It was referred there. We have consulted with Senator Amy Marcos, and I believe she will make a manifestation after this privileged speech. We are seeking that the Electoral Reforms Committee referral be changed with the consent, of course, of the chairman and, of course, the permission of the body, referred to the Committee on Rules so that hopefully our plenary can adopt the said resolution with the permission of our colleagues. Maraming salamat, Mr. President, Majority Leader, at we hope to get and secure the support of our senators to a request that we believe is reasonable and necessary. Magandang araw at maraming salamat.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. May we recognize Senator Amy Marcos as well.
Senator Amy Marcos is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And the transfer of referral from what would usually be a referral to the Committee on Electoral Reform is proper and accepted by its chairperson. Given that in truth and in fact, we have heard the same issue and proposed the postponement of the registration period repeatedly in the past. And the COMELEC itself admitting that 8 to 9 months have actually been lost in the past year and a half, given the COVID situation and the varying lockdowns that have been imposed. However, I would like to relay to the chamber a number of arguments they have posited, which we should answer as well. Firstly, they say that there has been no diminution or decrease in the number of registered voters. As a matter of fact, they have all prospects of meeting their target of 61.9 million, given the oversubscription of the first time or SK voters. They are also saying that there is going to be an ERB meeting for reapplication, transfers, corrections of input data, and so on in October. So malamang makaabot pa sila ng 61.9 million na target nila in the first place, at yung sinasabi na 73 million qualified sa PSA, hindi raw nila magamit na target yon pagkat napakarami roon ang hindi mahanap or disqualified o kung ano-ano pang mga problema. So yun ang isang dahilan na hindi naman nawalan ng karapatang bumoto o natanggal sa listahan ang karamihan, kundi yung mga kabataan ay di hamak na nadagdagan pa. Ikalawa, ang sinasabi ng COMELEC, maaantala daw yung kanilang iba't iba pang mga aktibidad na naka-schedule. So these are the reasons they will give. The second one, obviously, the filing of the certificate of candidacy, deadline October 8th, the petitions for inclusion and exclusion, and of course the overseas voting, which, as we all know, has to be started much earlier, given that the OFW and the other overseas Filipinos vote 1 month ahead of our locals. However, it should be noted that the COMELEC has made the substitution of candidates earlier from December 15. It is now November 15. So that shortens the period even further. Hence, they are appealing that we do not postpone the registration period. Thirdly, the COMELEC says that besides their usual activities that are scheduled, they also have COVID measures that they have to try and test. COVID marshals have to be appointed and trained. Holding areas have to be designated. Special polling places will no doubt be multiplied, and medical and health workers need to be found. So I impart these replies of the COMELEC both to Senator Pangilinan and to all my colleagues here in the chamber, so that we can find, perhaps, if not a complete postponement, a compromise in the dates already provided by COMELEC. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much, Mr. President.
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. President, with the permission of Senator
President?
Pangilinan, I would just like to also support his call for postponement of the end of the registration for our new and young voters. Mr. President, I just watching the news every day of those lining up. I'm so happy that Senator Pangilinan showed the videos earlier. And I know so many people who never voted before, even in their later age, are now going out to register because they want to vote and they want to have their voices heard, Mr. President. And it's just so difficult for many of them, especially in the time of the pandemic and the lockdowns. So I support this measure. As a matter of fact, it's a sense of the Senate anyway. So to our dear chairman of the committee, it really is just a sense of the Senate. Maybe they can come up with a shorter period, but the most important thing is we continue registering our new voters at least as long as we can, as long as it possibly can, Mr. President. So I'd like to recognize, of course, our dear distinguished colleague, Senator Risa Ontiveros, before I make a motion to proceed with the resolution.
Senator Risa Ontiveros is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, good gentleman from Pampanga, my colleague in the minority, may I just make a very brief manifestation and then ask the good gentleman a couple of questions in relation to the privileged speech?
Willingly, we will yield to the questions of Senator Risa Ontiveros.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just for the record, Mr. President, good colleague, that Akabayan Youth, the First Time Voters Network, and their other allied youth and student organizations support the resolution led by the good gentleman and co-authored by about half a dozen of us, and now supported in terms of a sense of the Senate by the majority leader for that extension of the registration for at least a month. So the original call, in fact, was at least till October, which was also the call of the resolution led by the good gentleman. And then just for my first brief question, Mr. President, good gentleman, although the good gentleman showed very striking videos and shared with us really poignant text messages, social media posts of various young citizens. Are there other broad strokes of the status of the voter registration operations in the past few days? And maybe, Mr. President, I'll just combine the second question to make it just one question. Ano po yung maasahan kaya nating changes in terms of voter registration given the new alert system starting this Thursday, Mr. President, good gentleman?
Well, that is a good question because we are afraid na lalo na namang magiging mahigpit itong mga patakaran na lalo pang hindi makapagrehistro ang mas marami nating mga kababayan. Kaya napakahalaga na maipamalas natin sa ating mga kababayan na ang Senado ay nais suportahan itong kagustuhan ng mas marami nating mga hindi pa nakapakapagrehistro na nating mga kababayan na makapagrehistro.
Maraming salamat, Mr. President, good gentleman, good colleague. Nakikiisa talaga ako sa matinding concern ng good gentleman ipinakita sa kanilang privilege speech at yun na nga, binibigyang diin din nila na sa pag-roll out nitong bagong alert system at yung balitang sasailalim, halimbawa ang NCR sa highest level, Alert 4, at mukhang tatagal hanggang katapusan ng buwan. So sasabay pa po dun sa bitin na nga pong deadline para dito sa voter registration. So sana po ang mas i-roll out ng matindi at mas matagal pa, gaya nung sa privilege speech, Mr. President, ng good gentleman, ay yung voter registration at hindi lamang o hindi mas yung isang bagong alert system. So maraming salamat, Mr. President, good gentleman, dear colleague. At tulad ng lahat ng ating mga kasama, nakikiisa talaga po ako hindi lang sa ating resolution, pati po sa panawagan muli sa inyong privilege speech na i-extend po talaga ang voter registration at least hanggang Oktubre para kahit may mga lockdown, may mga quarantine, ay hindi naman po ma-quarantine yung karapatang bumoto, lalo na po ng ating mga first-time voters. Maraming salamat po, good gentleman. Maraming salamat po, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President.
Senator Amy Marcos.
Senator Amy Marcos recognized.
Yes, just a final manifestation of support for Senator Kiko Pangilinan together with Senator Risa Ontiveros in full recognition of Pangandaman versus Comelec as well as Fermin versus Comelec. We nevertheless support this expression of the sense of the House that a postponement of the registration period is in order. Thank you very much.
We thank the Senator from Ilocos Norte. Maraming salamat. Agyamanaka po.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And with that, let's act on the matter at hand, Mr. President. I think it's time.
To transfer.
Mr. President, I move that we transfer from the Committee on Electoral Reforms and People's Participation to the Committee on Rules, proposed Senate Resolution number 851, entitled Resolution Urging the Commission on Elections to extend the deadline for voter registration from September 30, 2021 October 31, 2021, to prevent voter disenfranchisement brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. I so move.
Any objection? Hearing none, so transferred.
Mr. President, with the permission of the body, I move that we consider Senate Resolution number 851.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I would like the Secretary to read the title of the measure, then we'll recognize the sponsor quickly, and we can approve this.
All right, the sponsor is recognized. The Secretary will read the title of the measure without prejudice to inserting into the records the text of the said resolution.
Resolution urging the Commission on Elections to extend the deadline for voter registration from September 30, 2021 to October 31, 2021 to prevent voter disenfranchisement brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Majority Leader. Senator Pangilinan is recognized.
Yes, Mr. President, we already delivered the privilege speech. I think that would do as well as a sponsorship speech. May we request, therefore, that the motion to approve be manifested and that we adopt the same.
Thank you, Mr. President.
What does the Majority Leader say?
I absolutely agree, and to hasten the proceedings, Mr. President, that his privilege speech be made part of the sponsorship of this measure. And if he will allow me to be as well a co-author of the measure together with Senator Risa, I presume also together with the Senate President and Senator Amy Marcos and those who were present earlier.
Absolutely. We thank the Majority Leader and all those who wish to be co-sponsors of the measure and co-authors as well. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Leader.
With that, Mr. President, we move to adopt proposed Senate Resolution number 851. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, PS Resolution 851 is hereby adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Leader. Thank you, Senators Amy Marcos and the rest, Senator Ontiveros and the rest of our colleagues. Maraming salamat.
Thank you and congratulations, sir. Very timely measure indeed. We need to have it extended, definitely. Thank you. Mr. President, we just have two housekeeping measures before we adjourn. Upon the request of the author, Senator Grace Poe, and with conformity with the chairperson of the Committee on Health and Demography, Senator Christopher Lawrence Bongo, I move to transfer from the Committee on Health and Demography to the Committee on Finance, the primary committee, Senate Bill number 2321. This is the vaccine cards, Mr. President. So move.
Any objection? Hearing none, so transferred. Referral changed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, with the permission of the body, I move that we proceed with the Senate President's designation of the Senate conferees to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 1928 and House Bill number 8203, otherwise known as the Microgrid Systems Act.
The following members are hereby designated as Senate conferees. Senator Sherwin Gatchalian as chairperson, and Senators Binay, Angara, Marcos, and Hontiveros as members.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And we thank our colleagues for a very fruitful day today. We passed several measures on second reading, one on third reading, and hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to tackle a number of measures as well. So with that, I move that we adjourn session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Wednesday, September 15, 2021. Maraming salamat po, Mr. President.
Any objection? Chair hears none. The session is adjourned until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Wednesday, September 15, 2021.
Thank you.